Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Irish Breakdown podcast brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Happy Friday. Hope everybody's ready for the weekend. Another week of the offseason is now behind us. Only 189 more days, folks, till Notre Dame kicks off against Wisconsin up at Lambeau Field. But in the meantime, we have a Friday Free-For-All Mailbag to get to. And this is how we like to wrap up every single week here at the Irish Breakdown podcast, especially now that it's the offseason. Love getting a bunch of different questions in here. We already have 36 starred. Now, if this does happen to be your first mailbag, you can put MB for mailbag before your submission, or you can put a mailbox emoji. That lets us know to set your question aside. Super chats get bumped up to the top, but this is what today's show is dedicated to today, folks. We are answering your guys' questions. It's not just for premium message board subscribers. It's for anybody that tunes in on a daily basis to listen to us here, something that we like to do to give back to all of our awesome listeners. But it is Friday, Brian. We have a lot of awesome questions in there today. I'm ready to answer some of the good ones that are in there.
And I love it when John A1 has the first set of questions in there because John always comes correct. So let's get started here with one from John A1.
Now that the rosters are deeper, is there increased chance that players' progress goes unnoticed by the coaching staff?
It's certainly possible. I don't know that I think the rosters are necessarily deeper across the board everywhere. I think there are some kids getting scholarships now that would have been walk-ons in the, preferred walk-ons in the past. So I think there's a little bit of that, but I think what we've seen is one of the few things that the NCAA has done well recently, or done right recently, is the rosters are actually being decreased. What we're seeing is we're seeing more scholarship players, but rosters are being capped at like 105 now. That's where it's trending. So teams are already starting to work towards that because they think that's going to be trending. They used to have 120 some players on their team. So they're actually thinner. But instead of your, last quarterback being Mickey Brown or Charles Dew, it's, Chance Tucker, like a scholarship player, like a guy that can play. And I do think that can lead to an increase in players being unnoticed, John. But what the NCAA has done in response to this, or actually, I don't even know if it's in response to this, but what's coincided with this is the expanded coaches on the field that can coach now. And so if you're hiring good analysts that you trust, and you're letting them work with you guys. So we talk a lot about Joe Rudolph here, and he's got an assistant by the name of, I believe it's Rob Delaney. And, Trev, we saw last year in fall camp, we saw last spring that Rob Delaney's allowed to go work with other offensive linemen. So like Rudolph will be coaching like the right side and Coach Delaney's working on the left side. We will see Mike Denbrock allow Harris Bivin to be kind of down there working with the tight ends. And in those situations, if you trust a guy enough to let him coach a group, then you should trust him enough to say, hey, how are guys doing down there? And you should also be watching film to make sure as the offensive line coach, you're seeing every rep that your players are taking. But having analysts that can work with those players not only allows guys to get more coaching at the bottom of the depth chart, but if you have someone that is doing it the right way, then they're having conversations about how guys are doing, which helps them kind of get noticed. Here's the other thing you see, Trev. On a good coaching staff, and I don't know if it happens on this one because I don't know this coaching staff well enough. I don't know any of the defensive staff. So I don't know if this is happening in either way, but I know it's happened on past staffs, and that's not an insult. I literally don't know. It could be happening. I genuinely don't know. But in the past, I know for a fact that offensive coaches would sometimes those during bye weeks, but sometimes it's just in the middle of the week where, like, I know that in the past, Mike Mickens has talked to the receivers coach, and I know receivers coaches have talked to DB coach to Mickens, and I know that O-line coaches have talked to D-line coaches and vice versa. Like, hey, just so you know, man, so-and-so has been kicking our butt down there the last couple of weeks. Like, he's playing great. He's playing hard. He's making a lot of plays. Like, you should check it out. And a smart coach will then go watch the film and say, hey, is this kid playing at a level where I think he can maybe come help us? And we've seen that before at Notre Dame where a guy's doing great on scout team. So even though he's not being evaluated by the position coach on a day-to-day basis in the same way, he's getting noticed. And a good position coach, like I would do that. I would, during bye week, I would watch some scout team film to see how my young receivers are doing. And if I couldn't sleep, I'd watch some scout team film, which was a lot when I was younger. I'd watch some scout team film and see how my guys are doing down there. So I think there's still ways to make sure you get noticed, but certainly when there's more really good players in a roster, John, I think inherently that does make it more. It does increase at least the chances that happens.
Yeah, the biggest thing is working cohesively as a staff. If Rob Delaney is seeing Cam Herron at practice really starting to take off and really starting to do some good work rotating in with whether it's, the third team or the scout team, he has to do a good job of communicating with Joe Rudolph what's happening because, again, Joe Rudolph's only one person in charge of a 20-man room. And so that's why cohesive communication is so big with this piece. But, yeah, there's a lot of different ways for players to get noticed. Agreed. From Salty Virginia Peanuts, Notre Dame has recently hired 2 coaches, Jean-Marie and Shivers, within weeks, being hired elsewhere, and Codlin within a year. Is this frowned upon in coaching circles?
I think Codlin was hired about a month and a half ago, right? I mean, so it was relatively recently also. I mean, it's not appreciated. I mean, you hire a football coach, you don't want him to get poached, but that's the reality of it. And I think with like Coach Jean-Marie, it was more of a situation where, first of all, these are different levels. Brian Jean-Marie is someone who is a full-time, one of the 10 main assistant coaches. Coach Shivers and Coach Codlin are sort of assistants in the room. So, Coach Codlin is still going to be reporting to Aaron Henry and things like that, and Coach Shivers will most likely be, depending on what he's doing. I don't know if he's going to be doing just running backs, just receivers, a little bit of both. I'm not quite sure. I thought it was going to be receivers, but he's still going to be answering to Mike Brown. But Mike Brown has a 15-man staff, kind of like what Trev was talking about. So he's still going to have somebody to report to. They're not full-time coaches the way that Brian Jean-Marie is. So it's a little bit different. But coaches also understand, most head coaches understand, there's certain, like going to be the linebackers coach at Georgia Tech and then getting hired by Notre Dame is not a lateral move. It's a lateral position, but it's not a lateral move. And I think most coaches understand that. It's like if I'm a full-time coach at Bowling Green and I get hired by Notre Dame, I'm not making a lateral move. And so I think coaches understand that. Doesn't mean they like it. I would say it's still probably frowned upon, but that's the nature of the business. So yeah. I kind of get it.
Yeah, I mean, looking at it through a Notre Dame lens, if you have the opportunity to improve your coaching staff, then you go out and do that. It's not you look at a guy like, Brian Jean-Marie, and it's like, well, I would love to have him on our staff, but he just accepted a job, so I'm not going to do my due diligence and reach out and communicate with him. So, yeah, it's the nature of the beast. You see that in various different sports. You see that in the business world. It happens. Doesn't mean it's awesome, but it happens.
All right, let's keep rolling. I'm going to try to get through to John A1 and Salty did a lot of questions. So I'm going to try to get some other people, and then we'll work our way back to those guys.
From the history expert 82, over under 1.5. How many times will Notre Dame be one of the teams featured on College Game Day as either the home or away game? I'm taking the over, BYU and Miami.
Ooh, that's a good one. Notre Dame at BYU, that could definitely be one, Trev. I'm very curious about the weekend. I always kind of looking at
November
at the schedules, right?
I know November 7th is a loaded slate. It's Notre Dame, Miami. I think, oh gosh, does Ohio State play Oregon that weekend? There's a lot of games on.
So on the weekend that Notre Dame plays BYU, you've got Mississippi State at LSU, Auburn at Georgia, Missouri at Ole Miss, Alabama at Tennessee, Florida at Texas. Texas A&M hosts the Citadel. That might be one. Psych. You play a soft. Florida State at Miami. How good is Florida State going to be? Ohio State at Indiana. You know what I mean? Penn State at Michigan State. How good are they going to be? Yeah, so there's some good ones that weekend as well, Trev. And then you said the November 7th one,
Yeah,
Oklahoma at Florida, Alabama at LSU, Georgia at Ole Miss, BYU at Utah. You know, what do they say? That's good old-fashioned hate. Michigan State at Michigan, Oregon at Ohio State. So, yeah, there's some good ones. There's some really good ones those weeks, Trev. So, honestly, you know what I could see when I could see game day going to Notre Dame is I honestly could see game day going to Notre Dame in week 1. That is a bad slate of football. Like, really bad slate of football. Here's the P4 versus P4 games that weekend. So, this is week 1, not week 0, so week 1. You've got Miami at Stanford Friday night, so that won't be it. You've got Baylor at Auburn. No, Baylor versus Auburn in Atlanta. You've got Clemson at LSU, Louisville against Ole Miss in Nashville, and Boston College at Cincinnati, Oregon State at Houston, UCLA at Cal, Boise at Oregon, Washington State at Washington. That's the slate. Then SMU at Florida State. So I could see a world in which they kind of want to be at Lambeau in the opening weekend. I would assume because you'd think LSU and Clemson, but that's where's Clemson going to be ranked? You know what I mean? So that might be one. I'm going to take the under just because I think the to Trev's point, there's some of the better weekends for Notre Dame are going to be weekends where there's other great games, and I don't know how much ESPN's going to want to be hyping up Notre Dame. I'll say this: if you were to say game day and big noon kickoff, there might be an increased chance that Notre Dame gets a big noon kickoff one as well. I could see them in Lambeau in week 1. You know what I mean? Doing stuff, or at least from Green Bay on Saturday. And then, of course, Notre Dame's game isn't until Sunday. I could see something like that. And then also game day, but I don't know how much ESPN is going to want to hype up Notre Dame in this season when we get to game day. So I'll take the under.
Yeah, it's definitely close for me. I could see Fox big noon kickoff going out to Provo. I could see college game day coming to Notre Dame, Miami. A lot of different storylines with that one. Everything that went down last year, and then obviously that's it's the exact location of the 88 game. You could draw some storylines out of that too. I could see them going to that one. Week 1, potentially. That'll be interesting to see how they would do that with it being a Sunday. Yeah, like I could see them just wanting to be on site at a college campus. Not saying I agree with it, but it's ESPN. I could see them doing that too. So we'll see, but I'm also going to take the under.
Yep. All right. Let's get to Bobby S.
Did Keon Keeley say anything about his weight change? He looks leaner already. Can he back up both DN spots, or is he strictly behind Bryce Young?
I don't. Did he say in the interview he's strictly behind Bryce Young, or he's behind Bryce Young? I don't know that I've said that. We talked about this. There was I think it was a Bison hold. It was during one of our shows. Maybe it was yesterday when we were talking about the D line. But we've said we think there's a chance that Keon is going to play both end positions. And I would say right now, I would certainly groom him that way. I would not want to just limit him to one position. They play right, left, but it doesn't mean you can only play the right or the left. It just means when you're in the game, you stay on the left or you stay on the right. You're not switching in a series, but it certainly can back up both guys. Your responsibilities don't change. It's based on call strength and formation strength in most instances. So he certainly can, but no, I don't remember him saying anything about that, Trev. And he definitely looks leaner. He still has a lot of body reshaping to go. The first thing with Keon is get some of the bad weight off. And then the next 4, 5, 6 months will be built on adding better weight to his frame. But yeah, I thought he looked leaner.
Yeah.
I mean, he's 12 pounds lighter on the roster than he was at Alabama.
Yeah, I think the only player who talked about their weight was Tion Gray, and he was just talking about the target range that he wanted to get down into. So From Trev's Biso Hold Glasses, in your opinion, what is the most electric play to watch en route to a touchdown? A long run from your running back, a quarterback dropping a bomb, a wide receiver putting a DB on skates, a DB pick six, a D-line big man fumble, scoop and score. Which one of those, Brian?
I mean, it depends on the moment. I mean, that's kind of really the thing. A long run from your running back, well, it depends on the moment. I didn't think Jeremiah Love's touchdown run and Jadarian Price's touchdown run against Syracuse were electric. They were entertaining. You kind of chuckled a little bit because it kind of felt like you're playing NCAA 26 on freshman level.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's kind of how it felt like, where every time you run the ball, every other carry is a long touchdown.
Yeah.
And, for me, I just keep running stretch and counter. I run stretch. If they overplay it, I come back with counter away. I mean, that's pretty much what I do whenever you're playing freshman level. But I'll tell you what, Jeremiah Love's 98-yard touchdown run against Indiana sure was electric. So I just think it depends on the situation. I've seen quarterbacks drop bombs that I don't know that I'd call it an electric play, but I think it sure was when Deshaun Kaiser hit Will Fuller on the first play from scrimmage against USC. I mean, so it just depends on the situation. The one that I would, if I had to go with one, because I want to honor the question, right? Not just cop out and say like they're all big moments. If I had to go with one, I think in a pick six in a really close game can be a really electric play, especially if it's like a step in front of a throw type of pick six. I think of the one that Jalen Stroman had, the one that Tay Johnson had this year against Pitt was pretty electric. I thought the one that Don Schuler had in that same game was pretty electric. I was in Spartan Stadium, Trev, in 2017 when Julian stepped in front of a Brian Lewerke pass and picked it off and took it back to the house. That was a pretty electric moment because at the time I think it was like 7-0, and Michigan State had crossed midfield and Julian steps in front of it, and that was a pretty electric play, and Michigan State never really fully recovered from that. So I think it just depends on the situation. But if all things being equal, I think a pick six is the even more electric play. Because let's just say Jeremiah Love has his 98-yard touchdown run against Indiana. Electric moment, 7-0 Irish. Let's say on the very next play, Xavier Watts steps in front of a dig route and houses it. I think that would have been even more electric because the reason why it's the sudden change of event. It's the sudden change. I mean, we call it in football sudden change, but it's that immediate, like, oh my gosh, they had the ball and now, holy moly, we just scored a touchdown. Like, that's why I think that one's kind of a pretty big moment for me. And I would say probably the most electric if all things are equal. But it's always going to come down to the moment. What's the situation? A big boy scoop and score doesn't mean a whole lot in a game you're up 21-0 or against a bad team. But if it were to happen in a game you're up 3, or hey, it's 6-3 Irish. Let's say when RJ Oben has that strip sack that Junior picks it up and houses it, that'd have been pretty flippin' electric. It just depends on the moment. But if I had to pick one, I'll go with the DB pick six.
Yeah, by and large, I'm following your suit here. I love a good long touchdown run, but maybe I'm just spoiled from watching Jay Love and Jadarian Price for the last 2 years. But I've kind of gotten to where it's just like, yeah, that's cool.
Oh, another 60-yarder. Hope the defense is ready. Yeah,
but yeah, that's cool. Yeah, he did it against Indiana and Boston College and Navy and Army and Syracuse, and you know what I mean. So it's like, it's still great. I'm not unhappy when it happens, but by and large, a pick six is always just awesome.
Agree.
From Brandon Gilbert, 1990 Orange Bowl was the first college game I ever watched. Didn't know either team, but when I saw the Notre Dame gold helmets coming out of the tunnel, I was hooked. When was that moment for you guys or the game?
Yeah, so what's interesting is that game had 2 teams with gold helmets because you had Notre Dame against Colorado at the end of the 89 season. Then Notre Dame won that game 21-6. Colorado was ranked number 1 in the country that year. It was the 7th top 15 team it was, I think, the 8th top 15 team that Notre Dame beat that year, which is just absolutely bonkers. Second year in a row that Notre Dame knocked off the number 1 ranked team in the country. Them were the days, buddy. Them were the days because they beat Miami in 88. That moment for me when I was truly hooked was probably USC 1988. So I remember watching the Michigan game that year, vaguely. I remember watching the Miami game that year, but it just, whatever reason, didn't stick with me. I absolutely remember watching the USC game. That was the game where I was like, yeah, buddy. And it was for a lot of reasons. One is obviously I just had been kind of watching them all year. It was the first year I'd actually watched any college football. And again, back then you got like a game a weekend. It wasn't like you got whatever's on TV. And so, I mean, I was watching Ohio State games that year. They weren't as good as what Notre Dame was. But sometimes Notre Dame wasn't on TV. But I remember the Notre Dame USC game because I was also at my friend Jamison Jennings' house. And his dad had this big old satellite TV. And this is back when satellite TVs were massive. And you had like a massive satellite out in your backyard. It wasn't just like, where it is now. But I remember just watching that game on that and just being blown away with just, like you said, the imagery of, first of all, it's Keith Jackson. And it's the first Keith Jackson game I remember ever hearing. And I remember Keith Jackson flipping out for like 5 straight minutes because he thought Tony Rice stepped out of bounds because USC had this batch of green in between their colors and then the end line. So Tony steps out past the colors onto the green, and Keith Jackson thought that was the out of bounds. And Rocket, he launches a deep ball to Rocket, completes it for a big play. And Keith spent, I swear, it felt like the next 5 minutes just talking about like he couldn't believe that. And the other guy didn't correct him. I'm like, bro, it's like not even close to being out of bounds. You know what I mean? Like, but just I remember watching Tony Rice turn that option play up the field. I remember watching Stan Smagala with the pick 6. I remember Rocket having the big play. And I just, you talk about the pomp and circumstance of Notre Dame versus USC. And then there was the pregame hype of Lou Holtz sent Tony Brooks and Ricky Waters home for disciplinary reasons. And the Irish who were playing number 2 USC versus number 1 Notre Dame, and Notre Dame sending their, 2 stud running backs home. And couldn't they stop Rodney Peete and the great USC team? And I'm like, dude, that was intense. It was like a Super Bowl. And then you just watch Notre Dame go out there and work them. And you're like, okay, yeah, I'm hooked. I'm absolutely hooked. That was the game. That was the game for me.
Yeah, mine was 06 UCLA. I was there, and that was my first time experiencing a roller coaster of emotions in a game. I watched the 05 USC game. That's the first Notre Dame game I sat down and watched start to finish. Obviously, them losing didn't help it not be the time that I was like, this is my team. But being in that stadium and feeling like the rush of the crowd and how loud the crowd got when Samardzija scored the touchdown, the roller coaster of emotions of Brady Quinn going forward on 4th down on a QB sneak. He gets stuffed. They had all 3 timeouts. They get to stop, get the ball back, 52 seconds left with no timeouts. I mean, it was electric. And that's when I was like, okay, I am now going to dedicate my life to just watching this team every single Saturday, win or lose. That's where I'm going to be at. And so I'm kind of happy that that was my experience and it was against a team like a UCLA, because that kind of taught me from a young age. So like, it could be anybody. UCLA was a good team at that time, but it wasn't like they were playing like Ohio State in 06, or they weren't playing Alabama. It was UCLA. And that taught me from a very young age that kind of got to bring your A game every single week, or any team in college football can kind of sneak up and beat you. And so that was the game for me, going there with my dad to just be like, yeah, this is the best thing ever. Being in that stadium was intoxicating. It was great.
That's awesome. I still can't imagine what it was like being there for that game in 06.
Bro, I mean,
the whole game had to have sucked, until that very end.
Yeah, I mean, it was because I think they scored on their first drive of the game. Yeah. Also, Quinn to Samardzija, and then it was actually really boring.
Yeah,
for the rest of the game. And then my dad and I were sitting there, and we got the tickets cheap from a friend because one of our family friends was like, it's UCLA, you guys can just go. I went to Notre Dame, Michigan earlier this year. I'm going out west to the USC game. You guys can go to this one. And it ended up being electric. So,
yeah, Notre Dame scored first. And then to your point, and then UCLA went up 14-7. Notre Dame made it 14-10. Notre Dame made it 14-13. USC went up 17-13. So, once USC took a 10-7 lead in the second quarter, or 14-7 lead in the second quarter, Notre Dame never led again until the very end of the game. That's crazy.
It was nuts.
I just remember Notre Dame could not, for the life of them, block Bruce Davis. I'm trying to remember what the name of the other defensive end was, and I cannot remember what it was. It was Bruce Davis was one. I'm trying to see if I can find any of them where it says maybe he got sacked, but like those two ends just could not. Justin Hickman, they could not block the defensive ends. Bruce Davis, was the other one here. There it is right there. Could not block their defensive ends. And then on that last drive, Dwayne Walker goes, let's go off. Let's not pin our ears back. And I'm like, I'll still, to this day, Trev, never understand why defensive coordinators do that. They have not blocked your defensive line all day. And now you're going to just let Brady Quinn sit in the pocket. I'll just never understand it.
I remember one of the storylines coming out of that game, too, was Pat Cowan, UCLA's quarterback, had to go on a silent count because the week before that, he got on a sack. He got Juno chopped in the throat, and so he lost his voice. And so I remember they had to go on a silent count for the whole game for some reason. Yeah, that stuck out to me, too.
Yeah, that was Brady Quinn, 27 of 35 for 304 yards in that game. So what a day. What a day. I just remember that whole game sucking until the end. All right, here we go from Ball Peen Shillelagh.
On this year's team, if you had to choose one offensive and one defensive position group where the starters couldn't play and the second teamers started, who would you choose?
Oh man. Let's go with a unit where there's more than one guy. So let's not go like running back or quarterback. Let's go with most or like tight ends one. But I'd say the two most likely for me would be wide receiver and linebacker. Because let's just say the starting linebackers are Drake Bowen and Jaden Ausberry. Any combination of Kingston Viliama-Asa, Madden Faremo, Jalen Sneed is going to be pretty flippin' good.
Yeah.
Kahanu Kia, that's going to be pretty good. At wide receiver, let's just assume that the starting lineup is Jordan Faison, Jaden Greathouse, and let's go Micah Gilbert. Let's just go with returners. Your number two offense is some combination of Quincy Porter, Cam Williams, Mylan Graham, Elijah Burris. That's still pretty good. That would be where I would go. Offensive line, I would be okay at certain positions, but not others. I don't know how I would feel about the number two offensive line stepping in. Defensive line, I would probably say would be next for me. And then, I wouldn't be completely upset if the starting secondary was, let's say the starting offense, the starting defense is, you've got Leonard Moore to the boundary, DJ McKinney to the field. Let's go Christian Gray at nickel, Tay Johnson and Don Schuler at safety. If your starting secondary was, let's say, Jaden Sanders to the boundary, Mark Zachary to the field, Dallas Golden at nickel, Luke Talich and Ethan Long at safety, or maybe Joey O'Brien, or maybe Kari Adams at corner, or maybe Aiden Pouncey at corner, that's still pretty flipping good.
That ain't too bad.
So that's where you're pretty loaded when you're like, dude, I still think this is one of the 3 or 4 best secondaries or the 3 or 4 best receiver rooms on the schedule at worst. If you just included the backups, that's when you're pretty loaded.
Yeah, same as you. Offense, it's wide receiver. Defense, it's linebacker. From Josh Buffo, the motivational business banker. Josh Buffo, excuse me. Buy, sell, hold. Coach Marcus Freeman wins 2 natties at Notre Dame, or Coach Marcus Freeman coaches 2 Heisman Trophy winners at Notre Dame, and Coach Marcus Freeman wins a Super Bowl. You
literally put it in order of what I would buy, what I would hold, and what I would sell. I would buy him winning 2 natties. Give me 2 natties, and I don't care about 2 Heismans. 2 Heisman, but I still would take 2 Heismans over him winning a Super Bowl. I don't care about him winning a Super Bowl. With all due respect, I don't watch NFL, so yeah, buy the 2 natties, hold the Heisman, 2 Heismans, sell him winning a Super Bowl.
Yeah, same order.
That's a pretty easy one.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's see here we go. We got one down here from Juan Delgado.
If Navy would make the playoffs, how many teams would they give a run for their money, and how many teams would take care of Navy like Notre Dame has the last few years?
It depends on the team. But look, Navy would give a lot of teams some problems if they haven't faced a team like Navy. I remember 2018 watching Kyler Murray in Oklahoma just struggle with Army. That wasn't a very good Army team because they'd never faced that offense. So it depends on, has your defensive coaching staff faced a team like that? Let's say Florida makes the playoffs and they're going to play Navy. Or let's say Auburn makes the playoffs and they're going to play Navy. I would feel a little bit more confident with that staff having some sort of plan because they faced it when they were when they were in the AAC at South Florida and Tulane. They faced Navy. Now, not always with great success, but there were years they had some success and years they didn't. They'd at least have some semblance of an idea. Or let's say Al Golden gets back into college coaching. Let's say that he decides he doesn't want to coach the Bengals anymore and he gets hired at I don't know, pick a team, that Oregon, whatever. I'd be like, all right, he's faced the triple option before. He has a plan. They'll be fine. So it just depends on the team because I think that's having experience, and that's what's hurt Navy to a degree. I think joining a conference has hurt Navy and Army to some degree because teams start to kind of develop a bit of a book on you because they play you all the time. Oh, this team's figured it out. They play Navy every year, and they figured it out. But I think they could give a lot of teams a run for their money, at least early. But I'd have a hard time picking an upset unless they're playing a team whose defensive coordinator is just somebody we don't think is very good.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, your offensive talent is still going to win the day. I think what might happen, though, Trev, is if they win, they'll win by 3 touchdowns, but it's like 56 to 34, 35, 30, something like that, as opposed to 49 to 10, 51 to 14, the way that Notre Dame has done it, because Notre Dame's obviously had experience facing them.
Yeah, agreed. That's where I'm at with this one, man. I don't know if there's any team in the playoffs. Like, let's just say Navy made it last year instead of one of Tulane or James Madison. I don't know if any of the teams outside of maybe Indiana, strictly from a coaching standpoint, because I know a lot of people want to get into the argument, 2 stars, 3 stars, whatever. I don't care about that. But just strictly from how well coached Indiana is, I think that they would most resemble what Notre Dame does to Navy or what they've done to Navy over the last couple seasons. But teams that they could give a run to their money, I mean, I think they would beat James Madison or Tulane, honestly. And then you kind of start working your way up from there. I'll tell you this, and people down in Tuscaloosa aren't going to like this, but Navy would play Alabama significantly closer than what Alabama played Indiana. That's a hill that I will absolutely die on. I don't know. I don't think Navy wins that game, but it's significantly closer.
They're scoring more. They're scoring more than 3, and Indiana's not scoring more than 38.
Yep.
In my opinion, it may be 38 to 10, 38 to 14, but I promise you, to Trev's point, it would have been closer than 38 to 3. I think they'd have played him closer than Oregon did.
Yeah.
But, yeah, they wouldn't have won, to your point as well.
From ND, it just means more. Let's say your preferred alignment is what we get in 2026. If those changes are made along the offensive line and Notre Dame still doesn't come in the top 3 for the Joe Moore Award, should Joe Rudolph be brought back?
I mean, look, you're asking me about whether or not Marcus Freeman should fire Joe Rudolph, and I think you guys know me well enough to know that I don't really play that game. I'll just say this. If that's the case and they don't finish in the top 3, one of 2 things is true. A, Notre Dame got screwed by the committee, and we may feel that way. Or B, Marcus Freeman has to find some answers in the offensive line. There's no excuse not to have a top 3 offensive line. If because our preferred lineup is Jagasol comes back healthy, he's playing with Lambert. Even if Selvin Absher is your starting right guard, that's a good football player. Then yeah, I'm sorry, you should have a top 3 to 5 offensive line. But like, if they don't make the top 3 for the Joe Moore Award, but the Notre Dame offense is elite and we think they're the 4th or 5th best O-line, I'm not going to freaking fire the offensive line coach. You know what I mean? Like, top 5 is still, you're winning a championship with a top 5 offensive line. Indiana didn't have the number 1 offensive line in the country. They didn't have the number 1 offensive line in the Big Ten. They had one of the 5 to 6 best, and that allowed them to go win a title. I just want this offensive line to be outstanding. If that means winning the Joe Moore Award, great. If it means you don't win the Joe Moore Award, okay, as long as they win the Natty. Whether or not you bring Joe Rudolph back, the consideration should be more about, does the offensive line achieve its full potential, and is it a strength of an offensive football team that leads you to a championship or plays championship caliber football? I mean, that's kind of how I look at it. So that's a decision Coach Freeman would have to make. I'm not going to get into whether they should or shouldn't bring him back, but my success from the offensive line will not ultimately be defined by whether they do or do not win the Joe Moore Award. Do I think they should be in that conversation? Yes, but there are bigger considerations for me.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the populace of the fan base would do themselves a big favor by not putting themselves in doomsday scenarios in every possible way with this team. You know, like it doesn't always have to be about accolades at the end of the season or who wins what award. We don't have to play this game of, you know, what if we get everything that we want, we hope and dream of, but it doesn't live up to expectations. Like, then we'll evaluate it and talk about it when that happens, or if that happens. We don't know. But to Brian's point, I don't care if they win the Joe Moore Award. I don't care if CJ Carr wins the Heisman. I do for what the perception of Notre Dame would be. But ultimately, if Notre Dame wins a national championship and they're playing at championship caliber level, that's all that matters at the end of the day. Yeah. Like, it was cool that Jeremiah Love won the Doak Walker. First ever Notre Dame player to ever do it. I didn't get to see him play in the playoffs, though. That is the trump card. That's what holds precedent, what should hold precedent. Not the Joe Moore Award, not the Biletnikoff, not the Heisman, not the Maxwell, not the Davey O'Brien, not the Jim Thorpe. That's, I think that, and I've been there too before, Andy, it just means more. I get that completely, but we can't just look at every doomsday scenario and talk about people losing jobs. If they get the correct alignment and the correct 5, that's a huge step in the right direction to Notre Dame playing for a title. From Seth Clark, how many former Notre Dame teams do you believe Mark Zachary would start for? Well, I don't want to cop out and just say any before Mike Mickens got here, but there's a list. Some it would have been more difficult. I think he would have had a hard time cracking the starting lineup when your starting cornerback duo was Julian Love and Troy Pride. I think that's a very underrated cornerback duo, especially on Troy Pride's part. I think he could have started for, what was the year that, I think Cody Riggs was a starter. Is that 14?
14, yeah, because Kavari Russell got suspended.
Yeah, I think he could have started on the 14 team. I don't know if he would have been 15. That Kavari Russell Cole Luke duo was also very underrated. Very. Yeah, I think he could have had
sophomore Mark Zachary probably starts in 2016.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. I don't know if he would have started on Weiss's 05 or 06 team. Like, because 06 you had Mike Richardson and Terrell Lambert.
Yeah, 05 you had Lambert and Ambrose Wood. What didn't Ambrose also start in 06?
I know.
I thought Mike Richardson was before that.
But Mike Richardson was definitely in 05 and 06. I know that. But I don't remember, because I think Mike Richardson had a pick against Army on senior day in 06, and then he had a pick against USC in 05.
I'm thinking of Brock Williams.
But yeah, I don't know if but I think I mean, sophomore version of Mark Zachary starts on the 06, 07, and 08 teams. Or on the 07, 08, and 09 teams.
Yeah. He starts in 21.
Yeah.
I think he starts in 20, I believe. So yeah, there's a lot, but that's actually, I'm glad you said that, Trev, because that's a position that outside of 20 and 21, going back to 2018, has been a strength for Notre Dame. You know, I mean, it has been. So yeah, I think that's a good question, Seth.
That is.
I think the bigger question is how many teams that Notre Dame plays would Mark Zachary start on? That might be a higher number. That would be a
I mean, it would
significant higher number.
from a number standpoint, it'd probably be easier to try to figure out what teams he wouldn't start on opposed to what teams that he would. Because I mean,
probably we did get a super chat to pop up from UT Irish 55, Drew Rainey. Thanks for the super chat, my man.
Appreciate you, man. On offense, pick a player from any generation and make an offensive juggernaut. Caveat: you can only use 2 Notre Dame players to make your team.
Oh my gosh! So. Are we taking any player from any generation that we have to make 11 players, 11-man team?
No, I think. I have to pick a player from any generation and make an offensive juggernaut.
So do I got to pick 11 guys? Or are you saying like take this Notre Dame offense and then I get to take 2 guys from any generation? Like which one are you asking, Drew? Because one's going to take a lot longer than the other. And honestly, I don't know that I could.
Yeah. Why? What? We could just do it like take 2 previous Notre Dame players from any generation and put them on this offense to make it a juggernaut. So that kind of fits the confines of the question.
Sure. Can I have Jeremiah come back for his senior year? That's one. Yeah. That's one. The other one would be I'd either go Will Fuller I'd either go Michael Floyd into the boundary, or I'd want to bring Quentin Nelson back and put him at guard. That would probably be the first 2 that I would take.
Yeah,
honestly, I would say Michael Floyd at boundary receiver and Quentin Nelson at right guard. That would be my pick. And look, I would love Jeremiah Love back, but I got good enough running backs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That would be mine.
Yeah, I would go Michael Floyd to the boundary, and then I would probably bring back Joe Alt at left tackle.
Will Black hater.
Well,
I wanted to see Black and Lambert at tackle. That's why I went with Q, because I just want to see those guys at tackle.
That's fair.
Yeah. And right now, Sullivan Absher's like, seriously, dude. I'm trying to win a starting job, and you're bringing back Quentin Nelson. Come on, man.
I don't need to see Will Black at left tackle. I know what he can do there, bro. We're good.
Let's see what Joe Wall can do in this defense.
Yeah, we're good. I want to see what. I mean, look, I'll tell you what, though. If those players came back, I know you can't get any higher odds than the best odds right now on FanDuel to win the championship, but I can guarantee you they wouldn't be at plus 800.
Yeah.
I can guarantee you that.
And this is where Trev's buy so hold glasses misses the mark. He says if Q came back, would Joe Rudolph make him a tackle instead of a guard? Kind of seems his MO. I'm kidding. Well, this is why I think Trevor is very short-sighted for wanting to bring back Joe Alt. Because in reality, he just moved him to right guard. So I mean, it kind of defeats the purpose there, Trev. You got to think these things through, man. Come on, buddy. I expect it's because you don't have the glasses on.
I do.
That's what it is. Slacker. Man.
I got to get it together.
Look, I know it's Friday, but we don't just take the day off mentally on Friday. Trev, okay? Sorry.
Trev, hang back after the show's over. We got to
have a little impromptu staff meeting there, Trev. So let's get some more questions. We got one from Irish Lions.
Which player's high school tape was the most impressive you have seen throughout the years?
High school tape? Randy Moss. I've said this. Ronald Curry is the most impressive player I've ever seen on film. I've ever seen live. Ronald Curry was the best player I've ever seen up close and personal. And I've told people I played against Plexico Burris. My first pass of my high school career as a freshman got picked off by Dre Bly. Played against James Boyd, Deion Dyer. A lot of great players. Nobody was in the same league as Ronald Curry was in high school. The best tape I've ever seen was Randy Moss. That was the most absurd. Like, is he playing against children? You remember when you watched Chase Claypool's high school film against a bunch of little tiny Canadian kids? You remember that? It was like that, but even worse. It was, you know what I mean? It was like, is he playing against a bunch of Pop Warner kids? That would be it. Randy Moss.
That's how I felt when I watched Derrick Henry's high school film.
Oh yeah, he was good.
Like that, it was literally like, all right. I mean, are you playing at like Pee Wee football level? what are we doing here? I mean, it's the craziest thing I've ever seen.
His high school rushing numbers were absolutely bonkers.
Like,
absolutely bonkers. And here's the best part. Rivals did not rank him as the number one running back in the country. Rivals had 5 guys ranked higher than him. Yeah, true story. True story. One of them was Derek Green. You remember him, the kid in the Michigan who had like no balance, no contact balance. Like, no, he was just like, dude.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's just bring this question up because it's pertinent to what I just said. First of all, this was hilarious. Well, Joe Alt already knows how to play tackle, right? Very, very well played. You guys are starting to figure it out. You guys are getting it. You're definitely getting it. But I thought this question from Aaron Valerio would make sense because we were just talking about Randy Moss.
If Randy Moss commits to Notre Dame in the 90s, does that change the course of the program?
I believe it does. I think there's a chance we might have seen a bit of a rejuvenated Lou Holtz. I do think that Lou would have changed the offense to some degree. They aren't going to start running the fun and gun, with Lou Holtz as the head coach. But number one, I think Ron Paulus's career dramatically is viewed dramatically different. Like Ron Paulus to me was a guy that just came to Notre Dame with unreal expectations. Beano Cook saying he's going to win 2 Heisman trophies and he's the number one quarterback in the country. He was going to start as a true freshman on the 1993 team. He comes in 94 and, performs well. I mean, Ron Paulus was a good quarterback. It's just he played on some bad teams and the system just did not fit him. They did not adjust the system at all. But I think of that 1994 team. Ron Paulus is a redshirt freshman, has a nice year, 1,700 yards passing, 19 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. He's got Derek Mays as his leading receiver, and so he has that year. And then you go into 1995, that would have been the first year of Randy Moss. So you would have had Randy Kinder, Mark Edwards, and Autry Denson as your 2 running backs plus your fullback. You'd have had Randy Moss and Derek Mays as your top 2 receivers. And then you would have had Emmett Mosley. You'd had Pete Kriplevitz, who played in the NFL. You had, you would have seen an adaptation of the offense. And I can promise you that Ron Paulus would have done a lot better than 1,800 passing yards, 12 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. I can promise you that he would have done better than that. And so, I mean, I look at it, Trev, and I'm like, dude, that offense would have been kind of nasty. Now, 96, Ron Paulus is now going to his redshirt junior year. And he threw 12 touchdown passes that year, only 4 picks, 1,900 yards passing. And, he had Autry Denson was a 1,000-yard rusher for that team. You'd have had Malcolm Johnson. You'd have had Emmett Mosley, Pete Kriplevitz, Rakai Nelson, Shannon Stevens, and of course, Mark Edwards out of the backfield with Randy Moss. And then you go into 1997, which would be Randy's junior and final year at Notre Dame. And you'd have Autry going into his second year as the full-time starting running back. You'd have had Malcolm Johnson, Rakai Nelson, Jabari Holloway, and Bobby Brown is now stepping in the lineup with Randy Moss. I think that absolutely would have changed the game. Absolutely would have changed the game. And I do wonder what that would have done for Coach Holtz. What if he wanted to stay? I don't know that you've got the Bob Davie era kicking off in 1997 if Lou's got one more year of Randy Moss. No. You know what I mean? So, and I think they would have won more games. You think about some of the close games they lost in those years. I think Randy Moss makes a pretty big difference in some of those seasons, Trev. I really do.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I also think about the impact that would have had off of the football field, too. Would Notre Dame as an institution support the football program much earlier than when Marcus Freeman takes over? What other recruits could they have gotten from 1994 to call it 2021? You know what I mean? That could have also changed the course of the program's history. That's another thought too. So yeah, I'm with you. I think this absolutely changes the course of the program.
It does. I mean, 1995, they go 9-3. They finish number 11 in the country. They lost by 2 points at Northwestern, 15-17. I have a hard time thinking they lose that game. And then they lost to Florida State in a bowl game by 5 points. I don't know that they lose that game. Ohio State pulled away late. They would have lost that game convincingly, but that's probably a They went 9-2 in the regular season. That's a 10-1 regular season. Notre Dame began the season ranked number 9. They don't drop. And then 3 weeks later, they beat number 13 Texas by 28. They beat number 15 Washington on the road. They beat number 5 USC by 28. Their only loss would have been at number 7 Ohio State. That team is potentially – they finished the regular season ranked 6th, Trevor, and that was with a loss to Northwestern at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
That dropped them all the way down to 25. And then they dropped down to number 23 against after losing to Ohio State. But then, like I said, they beat number 15 Washington on the road. They beat number 5 by 8. They beat number 5 USC by 28. They steamrolled down the stretch. That team, to me, does not lose to Northwestern if Randy Moss plays. 1996, that home game against Ohio State, they lost by 13. I think that game looks very different if Randy Moss plays. They lost to Air Force in overtime. That was it. That was their regular season losses. They beat Texas at Texas, Jim Sampson with a walk-off kickoff. They beat number 16 Washington at home by 34. And none of the teams they played the rest of the way were ranked. After losing to Air Force, they blew everybody else out till they got to USC, and they lost that game 27-20 in overtime. I don't think that team loses a game that year if Randy Moss plays in 1996. I really don't. And, I could be wrong. I could be talking out of my you-know-what, but I'm just telling you, man, I remember watching those teams, and they were just like, man, they were good in a lot of areas. They just didn't have that offensive firepower that they had early in the 90s when you had the elite running backs. You had Rocket Ismail, Ricky Waters, you had some electric players. You didn't have that. You didn't even have a Lake Dawson type of guy at wide receiver, and that hurt him. Pete, so I just felt like that team with a guy like Randy Moss, now all of a sudden Malcolm Johnson's a complimentary player. And I think that would have made Malcolm Johnson even more productive. I think that would have changed, kind of how his trajectory would have been as a player. Same thing with like Bobby Brown, where you're not asking those guys to be the guy. Now 6'5" Malcolm Johnson's a complimentary player to 6'5" Randy Moss. So I felt those teams were really good. They just didn't quite have the firepower. Defensively, that 96 team, Trev, they had not only they had Keenan Tatum and LaRon Cobbs at linebacker, but they had like Ronaldo Wynn, they had Burt Berry, Corey Minor, Melvin Dan. Those are all NFL football players. Allen Rossum. Like, they had a lot of NFL football players on those defensive lines. They just didn't have the offensive firepower that they had in past years. And so, and to your point, what recruits would they have gotten in 96 and 97 if they got Randy Moss and were doing what they were doing? So, yeah, that one would have been. And there's been a lot of talk about Allen Iverson playing football at Notre Dame. I don't think Allen Iverson ever would have come to Notre Dame, ultimately. I think ultimately he would have gone to a basketball school. But, yeah, he said in the past he wanted to go to Notre Dame. But I don't know that – like, Randy – the difference there is that's a theoretical – he said Randy Moss signed with Notre Dame. Didn't commit and then decommit. He signed with Notre Dame and got that revoked. It was a completely different situation. He would have completely changed the trajectory of the program, in my opinion. It was because it was starting to go down a little bit. I think it has shot right back. His freshman year, they were 2 years removed from being the team that should have been the national champs. I think that would have changed things dramatically.
100%.
And when they revoked his admittance, I think that kind of sent a shockwave to other top high school recruits the next few years. Like, okay, like, do I really want to go to Notre Dame? So I think that had a huge impact.
From Notre Dame Wine and Cheese, over-under on bowl-eligible teams on Notre Dame's schedule. Over-under set at 5.5. Any teams you think could be sleepers in 2026?
So I'm going to take the over here, Trev. So number one, obviously there's already 4 that I think you and I feel pretty good about. BYU, Navy, Miami, SMU. Right? We feel good about those. Between Wisconsin, Michigan State, North Carolina, and Syracuse, I think 2 of those teams become bowl-eligible teams. I do. So I'm going to take the over. Not by a ton, but I'm going to take the over.
Yeah, that's definitely the proper line to set it at. Gosh, this one's close. Honestly, I could see it being 5. But Yeah, I'm going to take the under. I see it being 5. After doing like some of the roster breakdowns of some of the other teams, I really don't like the makeup of some of these rosters. North Carolina's roster is in some trouble. Syracuse's roster is in some trouble. There's a lot of question marks at quarterback right now. One of my sleepers is Wisconsin because they had a really strong portal cycle. I don't know if Luke Fickle is going to be the guy to get them all to play cohesively, but just from a talent conversation, it's there. But as of right now, I'm taking the under. I think it'll be a 5. I would love to be wrong. From Trev's Buy Sell Hold Glasses, what success do you see Coach Dylan McCullough having at Oklahoma?
Same success he's had everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not being disrespectful, but he's an excellent running back coach. He'll produce good running backs wherever he's going. And he's going to have a veteran group. We've talked about them before. I think I had Oklahoma. I think we both had them as preseason top 10 caliber teams. I had them, I think, 8. And part of it was your offensive line's coming back mostly intact. Mateer's going to come back healthy, and you've got all your top running backs that played for you last year coming back. So he'll do very well.
Yep.
He's a great coach.
Yep. And his last year at the collegiate level in 2024, he coached a running back room that was also paired up with a mobile dual threat runner.
Yeah.
Under center.
It worked out pretty well. And it's a deep roster of running backs, and he'll know how to use them.
Absolutely. From Tyler Evans. I'm not going to lie, Tyler. I think this might be the first time I've answered a mailbag question from you that wasn't a super chat.
I know. What's going on, dude? Are you tapped out? What's going on, buddy? Man. I'm totally kidding. Please don't put a super chat in there. Please don't.
From Tyler Evans, is there anything Devin Fitzgerald does like his dad when Larry was a freshman at Pitt?
Look, you're never going to hear me compare him to his dad. They're different players. I also can't tell you that I remember Larry Fitzgerald as a freshman at Pittsburgh. So, Tyler, honestly, I'm not trying to duck your question. I just don't think it's going to be fair to compare Devin Fitzgerald to his dad and ask him to play like his dad. He's a different kid. You know, this is 20-plus years beyond when his dad was playing. They're similar body types-ish, but their games are a little bit different. But here's one thing I will say, because I want to honor your question. The one thing that Devin Fitzgerald has that he got from his dad is great hands. He's got very strong hands. So as far as catching the football, it's going to be impressive. That's about all I want to really do in comparing him to his Hall of Fame father. I just don't think that's fair. You don't ever hear us talking about Bryce Young's similarities to Bryant Young. You know, it's just because it's not fair. Bryce is his own man, and he should be evaluated on who he is, and the same thing there. So, but that's to say, hands is the one thing that I would say are comparable, that I'm comfortable saying are comparable.
Yeah. Agreed. From Daily Comments, who were the nicest fans of an opposing team you met at a game, and who were the worst? Indiana fans at the Natty were the nicest fans I've ever been around. Cal fans, surprisingly, the worst by far.
That doesn't shock me at all. Indiana fans, I don't really remember being around a lot of Indiana fans at the game last year, so I couldn't tell you. Some of the nicest fans I've been around, I don't know if I could say who the nicest were, but I thought Georgia fans were great in 17 and 19. They were a ton of fun. Utah fans back in 2010 were awesome. I've heard people say Utah fans aren't good. I thought they were awesome when they visited Notre Dame in 2010. Navy fans are usually really good. We've seen some other ones. Clemson fans in my experience, have been really good in the games I've been to, been around where Notre Dame and Clemson have played each other. Those are some of the better ones. Michigan fans are terrible. Ohio State fans have been, just the experience around them has been pretty terrible. USC fans are more annoying than bad. It's like you don't even know how to talk trash appropriately. It's so obvious this is like your secondary team behind like the Raiders or something. Like, just stop. You don't even know half the players in the team. But just off the top of my head, those are some of the ones that Miami fans, in my experience, have been pretty awful as well, with all due respect. So, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't go for a Notre Dame game, but when I went to Clemson, I still wore Notre Dame stuff. I went to see them play Louisville in 2018. They were very nice. Give me restaurant recommendations, asking what Notre Dame's campus was like, saying that they would love to make it up there for a game. So hopefully once this home and home series starts with them, hopefully some of them can make it up. They were great. I went to the Ohio State game in 2022 that was in Columbus. Ohio State fans, by far, hands down, no questions asked, by a country mile, are the worst fan base I've ever been around. Like, by far.
And the only way it'll get worse for you, Trevor, is if you go to a game at Penn State or Michigan.
I believe that.
That's it. Those are the only fans that are comparable as far as how bad they are. Just the ignorance that you hear come out of people's mouths. Like, dude, you got a 5-year-old next to you. Did you really just say what you just said with your 5-year-old standing next to you? Like, wow, you really do suck at life.
Yep.
Yeah, they're pretty bad.
Yep. We went to a Target and they wouldn't let me use the restroom because I had on a Notre Dame jersey. They're like, you can use the bathroom if you take it off. I was like, I will never be back here. I'll go to the bathroom in this aisle. Yeah. I was like, I will never be back to this Target.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a whole
It was an employee?
No, it's just like the line of Ohio State fans. Like they would come and just actively come and step in front of me and Lauren. I'm like, hey, we were in line. They're like, we don't care.
Wow.
Can't use this bathroom. OH. Like it was
I played it from that comedian, which is just flipping great. Greg Warren, he's got this. He goes, like, these idiots can't even spell the state. You know what I mean? Like he's like, see, because he goes OH and somebody goes IO, and he goes, see. He goes, spell your. She goes, well, usually I work with a partner. Hey, Larry, this guy wants us to spell our state. It's like it's ridiculous, man. Absolutely ridiculous.
Irish ND 97. Would you rather watch Notre Dame win a championship this year, but know they won't win another one for 25 years, or not guarantee a championship this year, but make the playoffs every year?
For 25 years? Honestly, in this particular instance, because you went with such a long time, it's kind of a little bit different than the question we got asked last week, Trev. This one I would probably take the playoff every year without the guarantee of a championship, because I feel like in 25 years, if you make the playoffs, you're going to have a good chance, if you're making it every year, of winning a title. Having said that, you got to tell me, are we expanding to 24? Because there might be a lot of mediocre Notre Dame teams that make the playoffs. Brian Kelly would have been a playoff team from 2012 on. He would have missed it in what, like 14, 16. That's about it in a 2014 playoff. You know what I mean? Like, so it just that's the other thing is how big is the field? If it's 12 to 16, yeah, I'd probably take the guaranteed 25 straight playoff trips, because I think you win one at least then. But even then, I'm like, no, dude, I want a freaking championship right now. I'm 46 years old. Actually, I'm 47 years old. Like it's been over 30 years. You know what? No, I'm changing my answer. Screw it. Give me the title this year. Because in 25 years, I'll be in my 70s. I don't even know if I'll be coherent or even alive in 25 years. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, give me the natty now. I'm changing my answer. Give me the natty.
100%. Give me the natty right now. I've gone almost 29 years without one. I can go another 25. And who's to say they don't play for it every other year? Yeah. I mean, it would stink to know, that they're just not going to. But if they're winning, major bowls every year, they're walking away winning one of the big six, playing for a championship every other year, and I get the one in the back pocket, yeah, you can sign me up for that.
Yeah. Yep. You know what? I was like, playoffs every year, but no, give me the natty now. Give me the natty now. Yeah. I got to get one. I got to have him get one.
Getting into part 2 of the Irish Breakdown podcast, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. It's the Friday Free-For-All Mailbag. And in part 2, we have our guy Andrew Gilmore getting us kicked off here. Should Ricky Watters be in the NFL Hall of Fame? Is he not due to perceived attitude issues? And was he a problem at Notre Dame?
I don't know that I would say that Ricky was a problem. It would be more so of like he had a very high opinion of himself. He didn't always do things the right way, like a lot of us, that are lot of us that are young and dumb. I think that certainly there were some maturity issues there for him, I guess you could say. But man, I don't know. Like, he should be in the conversation, but I don't know that I can guarantee that I would say he's definitely a Hall of Famer. I mean, he is right now, he's 5, 10, 15. He's not in the top 20 all time in rushing yards. He obviously was a very good pass catcher, productive player. If you wanted to say Ricky should be in when we talked about this a couple weeks ago, Trev, I had the same thing. Like, man, he's got a really good case. He was a Pro Bowler the first 5 years of his career, including his rookie year. I mean, he's a pretty darn good player. Won a Super Bowl, was very good in the playoffs. I think you can make a case for Ricky. I do think his attitude and the fact that he got shipped around from team to team. I mean, he played 10 years, Trev, and he played for 3 teams. He played 3 years in San Francisco, 3 years with Philadelphia, 4 years with Seattle. And then he was done. So, I mean, perhaps his attitude was part of it. I also just think he was just kind of borderline Hall of Famer in his overall production. And I think the further he gets away from it, the less likely it becomes, because, he's a guy that the longer he plays, the more he gets passed up by other guys. So when he retired, Frank Gore wasn't ahead of him. Adrian Peterson wasn't ahead of him. LaDainian Tomlinson wasn't ahead of him. Jerome Bettis wasn't really ahead of him for at least a part of it. Derrick Henry certainly wasn't ahead of him. I don't think Marshall Faulk was ahead of him. Fred Taylor wasn't ahead of him. Steven Jackson wasn't ahead of him. Corey Dillon wasn't ahead of him. LaShawn McCoy wasn't ahead of him. Warwick Dunn wasn't ahead of him. So it's like a lot of guys have passed him up that are now going to probably get a little bit more of a push, in my opinion, than maybe Ricky would. But I think what helps Ricky is you add the receiving numbers, and all of a sudden it's a little bit of a different conversation about his resume. But I think he's at least borderline. He's in the conversation. I don't know that I'm torn, honestly, on where I am with that one.
Yeah, it's definitely up for debate. There's so many factors that go into the Hall of Fame, like Super Bowl. Like, sometimes it's more so for quarterbacks, talk about like championships, Super Bowl rings, MVPs, stuff like that. It's very hard for a running back to win an MVP, especially now. But another thing and this is just me, but one thing that I factor into is if you've changed the game in any sort of way, or if your performance dictated the position that you play to be looked at a little bit differently. And Ricky Watters was kind of one of the first dual threat type of running backs, and so you could make the argument there.
It's like Roger Craig just got in. Roger Craig did it, and then Ricky Watters did it. You know what I mean? Like, they were part of that change in the game thing. So yeah, if Roger Craig is going to be in, then shouldn't Ricky Watters be in? I mean, I know Roger Craig played in more Super Bowls and won more Super Bowls, but Ricky won a Super Bowl also. But Roger Craig finished his career with 8,100 passing yards and 4,900 receiving yards in his career. He finished with 1,300 career yards and 73 touchdowns. Well, Ricky finished with 10,000 career rushing yards and also had over 4,000 career receiving yards and finished with over 1,400 yards and had 91 total touchdowns.
It didn't.
If Roger Craig's a Hall of Famer, this is my whole thing. If Roger Craig was a good player, but if Roger Craig's a Hall of Famer, then Ricky Waters should be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
That's kind of my thing.
Didn't Ricky Waters set some record in the postseason too? He had 5 touchdowns in one playoff game or something. Yeah.
Divisional game. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was very good in the postseason. Ricky was so I talked about this the other day, Trev. Ricky in 11 playoff games had 666 rushing yards, 451 receiving yards. So he had 1,117 total yards and 12 touchdowns in 11 playoff games. So even if you take away the one where he had 5, so in the other 10 games, he still had 7 touchdowns in the other 10 games. That's a pretty good mark.
Yeah.
He had 4 touchdowns the year they won the Super Bowl. And he had a big touchdown in the Super Bowl. that year against the Chargers. So, I mean, look, I think he's kind of borderline, but I think once you put Roger Craig in, I think you got to put Ricky Watters in. Ricky can match what Roger Craig was as a pass catcher, right? So Roger Craig in his career had 566 catches in, let's see, he played 11 years, 566 catches, 4,911 yards, and 17 touchdowns. Ricky had, let's see here, Ricky in the regular season had 467 catches, 4,248 yards, and 13 touchdowns in 10 seasons. So slightly less than what Roger did. Roger was at 8,189 career rushing yards and 56 touchdowns. Ricky was at 10,643 career rushing yards and 78 rushing touchdowns. He was significantly more productive in one less season as a runner than what Roger Craig was, even though he's very close to Roger Craig as a pass catcher. So I think we kind of shamed Tyler Evans into doing a super chat. I feel kind of bad about that. We were just kidding, Tyler. We really were. I was just messing with you, man. We are greatly appreciative of the fact that you always give us super chats, and I hope we didn't guilt you into giving a super chat, man.
My bad, Tyler. I was the one that brought that up. But
it is your fault, Trev. I take no responsibility for my actions. It's all your fault, 100%.
But the buck stops with the head coach. All right, so super chat from Tyler Evans.
You did not just throw me under the bus.
Appreciate you, Tyler. Which former head coach will have more success as a defensive coordinator, Gary Patterson at USC or Will Muschamp? Did he go to Texas? Will Muschamp at Texas? Yeah. And who has more pressure?
Oh, there's no question that Will Muschamp has more pressure.
100%.
Nobody's expecting USC to compete for a championship this year. Like, even USC fans aren't like, this is our year. It's like, no. There's way more pressure on Will Muschamp. Who will have more success? I might go with Gary Patterson there. I'm not a big Will Muschamp fan. I'm really not. I could be wrong, but I'm just, unless he's changed his ways and better relates to young people without losing his, you know what? I'm curious how that's going to fit.
Yeah. Big picture, I could see Will Muschamp having more success this year, but over the duration of their careers at USC and at Texas, respectively, I think Gary Patterson could.
Yeah, I don't get the Will Muschamp thing. He was co-D coordinator at Georgia in 22 and 23. And then 24 and 25, he was a defensive analyst. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Got demoted? So.
Like he was still at Georgia?
Yeah, yeah. And it would say he could spend more time with his family. So he spent time with his family for a couple of years, and now he wants to get back into coaching football at a different time zone? Okay. Whatever you say.
Okay.
Well, he came highly recommended by Kirby. Yeah. Like Kirby's not going to, oh, yeah, sure. Go to Texas, the team that's challenging us in the SEC. Yeah, go ahead. Take Will. He's a great coach. I wish I could have kept him. He just wanted to spend more time with his family. Sure. Totally.
Another super chat from our guy, Drew Rainey. Appreciate you, man. You answered the first one correctly. Thank goodness. Now, which two Notre Dame players on defense do you add to this year's team to make it a juggernaut? Y'all are the best.
Oh, I mean,
man. I saw this come in and I started kind of thinking about it, and I was like, well.
I've actually got a couple.
Oh, go ahead.
There's a couple that I don't want to be disrespectful to the current team. That's part of it too. But if you give me Cam Hart at field corner and Bryant Young at D tackle, like, okay.
Yeah.
Or part of it is like, okay, Harrison Smith, Xavier Watts, Kyle Hamilton. Yeah, but so you're taking what I think is the best safety group and making it even more of a best safety group. But as much as I like DJ McKinney, I think of Cam Hart playing opposite Leonard Moore. That would be pretty nasty. And then, you could go with Jalen Smith at will linebacker. You could go with Manti. But it's kind of like if you put Bryant Young in the middle of this defense, who cares who's playing linebacker at that point in time? You know what I mean? It's like it doesn't even matter. So that's kind of why I went the direction that I went.
Yeah, I would go Jalen Smith and put him at will in this defense, and then I would also snag Stephon Tuitt and move him to the inside.
That's because you never saw Bryant Young play.
Yep.
Which we talked about. He obviously was done before your time, but basically imagine if Stephon Tuitt was even more physical, more explosive, and more productive. And that's Bryant Young.
Okay. Fair enough.
He's number 7 overall draft pick and then went on to be a Hall of Famer in the NFL. But Stephon's a very good comp. Stephon was a lot taller than Bryant Young. You have to go back and watch some 93 games, Trev.
I'll have to.
And watch Bryant Young. Because you're going to watch him and Jim Flanigan. Both of their kids now play at Notre Dame.
I should have some free time this weekend, and my dad has like a Plex server with like every game on it from like 1974 on. So I'll go back and watch some 93 games this weekend.
That's awesome. This is good from Tyler Evans to help BD from under the bus. That's awesome, dude.
Oh, I'm just adding to the list of things. Tyler. I'm adding to the list of things Brian's going to have to talk to me about after the show.
We're going to have a very long talk after the show today. Oh, my goodness. That's awesome. That is really good. That is really good. Oh, man. Now, the reason I didn't go with like Manti or Jalen Smith is, to me, what would be a bigger upgrade? Manti or Jalen over the current linebackers, or Cam Hart over the current field corners? Sure. That was kind of the way I looked at it. It's where am I making this team the best? It's not who are the 2 best players I could put in the lineup. That's why I didn't want to go with like Harrison Smith or Xavier Watts or somebody like that. But, man, you put BY up the middle. Whoo, dog. That's going to be fun.
Special teams, give me Justin Yoon and Rocket Ismail.
I know, right? Seriously. No, because that's going to be the third question. Yes, give me Rocket as a kick returner and give me Justin Yoon as my place kicker. 100%. 100%. Good questions. That was really well done. This just got me. That's freaking great. All right. So we got that one. So we can we've got everybody that's wanted to get one, I believe, so far. So we can kind of go back up to the top and start working through some more of these.
From John A1, in evaluation of the Notre Dame coaching staff, how do you rate the coach's floor and ceiling using the 5-star rating format?
Well, offensively, I give everybody a 4-star from the upside, and coordinators 5-star. Upside, floor, Joe Rudolph 3.5-star, Mike Brown 4-star. Mike Brown's kind of like that guy. Like right now, he's like a top 150 to 175 player, and he's got the upside to be like a top 75 player.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I feel about like Geno. Geno's like a borderline top 100 guy right now that's got the tools to potentially be a top 50 guy. Jaywan Siders, top 100 guy, same thing. Joe Rudolph's a top 250 guy that you have a shot to maybe be a top 150 guy. Defensively, I think Charlie Partridge is already kind of a proven 4.5-star top 50 player. The rest, I just don't know enough about him yet to give you a grade.
Sure.
Chris Ash, top 150 guy with 5-star upside. He flashed. He's that young guy that flashed late in the year, put up some big numbers late in the year when the season was already over. And now you're like, okay, can he build on that this year? That's kind of Chris Ash, right? So
that's good. That's fun.
Yeah. Somebody said, just curious, but what weight was BY playing at? He was about 300 pounds. He was like 290 plus at Notre Dame, even at Notre Dame. And then he spent most of his NFL career at like 305, 310, I believe. So he was a big guy, 6'3", 300 pounds. He was big. Early 1990s wasn't like playing in the mid 80s where you had linemen at a bunch of D tackles at 250. Those were pretty big. Those were pretty big guys.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to let's get another one from John here real quick. Let's see here. This is the one I was looking for.
Which offensive position group needs to make the biggest jump to allow the offense to go from all-time production for Notre Dame to all-time production for college football?
Offensive line. That's really it. It's the offensive line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you had to rank them, like one would be offensive line, what would be your next one? Receiver?
Quarterback. Yeah. Receiver 3, tight end 4, running back 5.
Yep.
You're not making a jump at running back. I don't need you to make a jump at running back. I just need you to be good.
Yep.
Yeah. And quarterback, just not because CJ needs a bigger jump, but I feel like CJ makes the receivers better as opposed to the other way around with the current makeup of this team.
Oh, sure. Sure. I mean, we're already starting to see hints of it. You know, we've talked about CJ quite a bit this offseason, but you go through and he had a good redshirt freshman year. And let's be honest, when you have outlets that are kind of looking at best returners and, you know, ESPN and CBS Sports and all that will put stuff out, CJ Carr is always going to be in those lists. Very excited to see what some of them look like in the summer. But a lot of it's just production. I mean, 24 touchdown passes, I think 3 rushing touchdowns, 6 interceptions, threw for like 2,600 yards. It was good. But that got him to be what we talk about here on a weekly basis. He's a favorite to win the Heisman Trophy on FanDuel. And so that goes to show you what kind of expectations around what he can be. So I'm with you. I'd put quarterback ahead of wide receiver as well. I'm with you completely. From Salty, with his development of Ritter and Carr and his still standing quarterback records at Cincinnati, is Gino Guidugli widely considered a, quote, quarterback whisperer?
No. You've got to do more than 2 guys in a stretch of 7-8 years. Now, Steve Angeli bounces back and performs well, and Kenny Minchie goes and plays well, and CJ plays well, and then maybe he starts to get that conversation, but I don't think so. Yeah.
No, I think to be a quarterback whisperer, maybe this is just my opinion, but you need to have more high levels of success. Sometimes it's relative, especially compared to, you know, we've had very up and down quarterback play that we've seen it come through Notre Dame. But when I think of quarterback whisperer, I think of guys like, I'm kind of taking the cream of the crop to a degree, but like I think of like Lincoln Riley.
3 straight Heisman Trophy winning caliber quarterback. I mean, he literally had back-to-back Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks. He's had 3 Heisman Trophy winners. He also had Jalen Hurts. He produced 3 number 1 overall draft picks at quarterback. Like, yeah, that's much more so than what. I mean, right now, Mike Denbrock's had more success with how the kind of quarterbacks he's produced because he had Jay Daniels.
Yeah.
You know, he had Everett Golson. He had Deshaun Kaiser. So, and then he was also at Cincinnati. So then you ask, okay, well, was it Gino that did that or Mike Denbrock? So I'm not saying that that's what I believe. I'm just saying, like, I think you need more than a couple guys in a decade to be someone that's considered a quarterback whisperer.
Yep.
All right, let's go down here to Trev's Bicycle glasses.
What is more satisfying, beating a rival coach that you respect like Brian Newberry or beating a rival coach you despise like a Pat Narduzzi or Lincoln Riley?
For me, it would be beating someone you despise. They're both pretty satisfying, but I think it's beating someone you despise. I get more joy out of beating up on, like, knowing that someone who I think is not a good person, knowing that I just kind of like ruined their entire experience right now makes me pretty happy. One's more about pride. One's more about satisfaction.
Yeah.
Like when I coached in a playoff game and beat my alma mater and the head coach that I played for, it wasn't satisfaction as much as it was a sense of pride. And I mean, was there a level of satisfaction? Of course. I felt pretty darn good about myself, but it was more about like, hey, see, told you, you know what I mean? It was more of that. Whereas when you beat someone who you just genuinely don't like, it's kind of like, take that one, buddy. You know, it's like, man, you know, you're sitting at home that night. You're like, man, I just think about he's having a pretty miserable experience right now. You know what I mean? Like some satisfaction in that. Sadly, I probably should be ashamed of myself. But yeah,
definitely a coach I despise. I think of it, you know, back when I was playing. I mean, in Elkhart, we had friends that went to other schools. And was it fun beating them? Yeah, because, you know, you hang out on the weekends and it's like, didn't have a whole lot of fun Friday night. But when there was a coach or a player that you actively didn't like, beating them was so much better. You know, I 100%. It's one of the biggest reasons why I want to play Michigan again, strictly because I just don't like them, and I want them to just be miserable every time they lose to Notre Dame. That's my whole thing, because I know that how miserable I was after 2019, knowing that was going to be one of the last times Notre Dame was going to play him for a while, and so that's how I look at that one. So definitely beating a rival coach that I despise. Ooh, another one from Trev's Buy So Whole Glass. Is a juicy burger or a juicy steak? All.
Go ahead.
It's a juicy steak by a mile. For me, I love burgers, and I love a good burger. But I'm a big floor-ceiling guy when it comes to food, and the ceiling of a good steak is better than the ceiling of a good burger, in my opinion. So I'm going steak, but let it be known here, February 20th, I am a big connoisseur of both.
It's a win-win. I would probably go with steak. Look, oh man, it's a tough one. And you know what, Trevor, I'm going to have to go with, if it's something I'm making at home, I'd probably have to go with the burger, because we can maybe get Vince's opinion on this, but so like I make smash burgers at home, and I put, obviously got the burger, I'll put cheese, bacon, and lettuce, and also caramelized onions on it. And then I have it on a pretzel bun. The flavor profile is just so good because you're getting so much more than just the steak. For me, it's more of that feeling that I get from steak. Steak is very close. If you were to tell me I could only have one or the other from someplace, I'd take the juicy steak, because it's harder to me to mess up a steak. Where I like my burger more than I like any steaks. I don't know that I feel that way about eating a burger from anywhere else being more satisfying than a juicy steak from just about anywhere, or even myself. That's kind of where I'm at on that one.
Yeah, that's definitely fair.
Yeah, my smash burgers are really good.
Hey, man, I'll be up your way come spring practice. I might have to swing by.
I told you. I'll have Vince come over. He loves them. Every time I'm making one, I'll just text him a picture, and he's like, "I hate you so much right now." It's like, dude, you live in the same neighborhood as me. Come over. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
One night he brought his wife over. I told him I was making smash burgers, and he brought his wife with him, and I made them both smash burgers and homemade fries. So she even liked it. And apparently she's a picky eater, but yeah, I'll have you guys come over. We'll make them. It'll be fun. It'll be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. From Bobby S., does James Flanigan have the ability to be a number one pass catching tight end rather than just an inline blocking force? Can he stretch the field? What former tight end can he be as a pass catcher?
Yeah, I definitely think he could be the number one tight end. And I don't know that I would call him like the number one pass catching tight end. Rather, I just say he's the number one tight end. If he's the number one tight end, then he does a little bit of everything. I think if I were to compare James to a former Notre Dame player, oh boy, Cole Kmet, a better blocking version of Cole Kmet would be what I would go with.
Yeah, it's a good comp.
But he's a better blocker. He has a better blocking potential than what Cole had. Yeah. Because Cole was like a little tight-hipped. He wasn't like that smooth route runner kind of guy like a Mitchell Evans. He was a little bit tight-hipped, but he was strong and vertically explosive and strong hands. And I think that James projects very similarly to what Kyle was.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Cole Kmet had the body type of a blocking tight end. I mean, he's 6'6", 250, but definitely dude can take a hit. I was watching the highlights from the 2019 Georgia game. There were a couple seam routes that he caught that he got absolutely lit up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had no answers for him that day.
None.
None.
That was a 100-yard day for him, I think.
Yeah. Yep. Salty Virginia Peanut says, assume Brian Kelly takes a head coaching job within the next 3 years. Where might it be and where should it be? We keep getting asked this question. I'll just give you my answer and then we don't have to keep answering it. I don't care. I don't think he should ever coach again. I don't think he has earned the right to work with young people who need to be developed as young men and to, be taken from, teenagers and borderline boys to being young men and be developed in every way. I think he's lost that privilege. I don't think he's worth the money people would pay him. I don't think he's a good person. I think he's past his prime. I don't think he fits modern athletes, all that stuff. And beyond that, like he does. So there's my answer. As far as if he does or where, I don't care. I made my opinion known. I don't think he should coach again. I don't think he deserves the right to coach again. If somebody's willing to hire him, so be it. I don't care. To me, and here's why. Everything I told you about Brian Kelly is never going to be doubted again because he went to LSU and did exactly what I told you guys he was going to do at LSU. Now you listen to the media at LSU, the national media. Now they're all saying the same things about Brian Kelly that I told you guys for years and called all this crap over from Notre Dame fans and then from LSU fans. And so I've already gotten my vindication. I don't need to continue to care about Brian Kelly. I dislike him. Everybody knows that. I think he's a bad person. At this point in time, I'm kind of tired. I'll take some little pot shots at him, but I don't really care where he coaches again, and I don't think he should coach again. And then hopefully we don't have to keep being asked that question. Care to elaborate, or are you good with that one?
If I could retweet what you said out loud, I would.
There you go.
Bobby S., can you compare the physical abilities of Teddy Gerard and CJ Carr? Arm strength, athleticism, arm talent, and if you had to rank him as a Notre Dame quarterback in terms of just talent since 2010.
Arm strength, he's got a better arm. He's a slightly better athlete. Arm talent, it's not close. CJ's got way more arm talent. Teddy's also still a very much an evolving quarterback. Arm talent involves all the things that go beyond arm strength. It's repeatability of your release. It's consistency of being able to throw on different arm angles. It's understanding of, because like arm talent also involves your mental. Like we say arm talent, but you don't have elite arm talent if you don't have elite mental ability. And I think that's all part of what makes CJ unique. Knowing when to put it high, when to, put it with a little bit of, some zip, when to throw the ball low and away, being able to just consistently put it where he wants it. Like those are all things where CJ is significantly greater. If I had to rank them in terms of pure talent, I mean, they're both top 5 most likely, but look, Ted, it's unfair because I'm comparing Teddy Gerard as a junior in high school to all these quarterbacks that I got to see play as seniors in high school. But if you go back to 2010, I mean, my top 5 quarterbacks are probably, just as far as that coming out of high school, it's CJ Carr. It's in no order. CJ Carr, Phil Dracovic, Deshaun Kaiser, Brandon Wimbush, and either Malik Zaire or Teddy Gerard would probably be where I would have him. Oh, I'm sorry. No, Everett Golson's ahead of both of them. And then it's Malik and Teddy, just as far as raw talent. Now, I would take Malik over Deshaun at Notre Dame because I think Malik possessed some of the leadership traits that I don't think Deshaun had. But if we're just talking like pure arm talent, all that kind of stuff, then that's probably where I would take him. Another disadvantage Malik had is he's 6 feet tall, where Deshaun is 6'4". So if we're just comparing it and fitting into the Notre Dame offense. So like that's where I would have him. I would have Teddy right outside. But again, that's unfair to say because I would probably have Teddy maybe a little bit higher if we're going off a junior film of other players. If I'm looking at junior film, I'd probably put him ahead of Deshaun Kaiser. I'd probably put him ahead of Malik. I'd probably put him ahead of Brandon Wimbush. I mean, we don't know what he would have been as a senior. The only guys that I for sure would say just had better God-given talent than Teddy as juniors were Everett and CJ for sure would be the guys that I would have there. So that would be the answer to my question.
Yeah, it's fair.
Your question. Sorry, Bobby. I don't know why I said my question, but that's the answer to your question.
For Ballpeen Shillelagh, if one of punt returning or kickoff returning had to be done away with, which one would you keep?
Punt returning. I think I would keep them both, but if I had to keep one or the other, I would say that one has more in-game flow to it. It's the easier way to change possessions. It's a more natural change of possession type of scenario than a kickoff. But I'd keep them both.
Yeah, same. I would also keep punt returning as well. Like if you just keep the entire punt operation, I mean, how many fake punts have we watched Notre Dame run over the last couple of years too?
A lot more, and you have a lot more success with that all around than onside kick.
100%.
Yeah.
So that's another factor too. I'm with you. I'd keep punting as well. From Trev's Buy, Sell, Hold Glasses, Brian, you're able to pull up some off-the-cuff stats depending on the conversation. What's your go-to sites for stats, and how many browser tabs do you have open?
Well, Trev knows I always have like a million browser tabs open because I don't close workout because I'm using this. I'm using that for research. So I probably got about 15 right now. Like I have my 4 Facebook tabs open right now. I'm closing them as we talk because I had published the show beforehand. I got the Notre Dame UCLA box score up right now. I've got Derrick Henry's recruiting profile up right now. Like when I tell you that he was ranked number 5 by Rivals, that wasn't like off the top of my head. I think there's a lot of things I can pull off my head. I think I do a pretty good job. I have like 4 different IB threads open right now that I got to go back and respond to when the show's over. So I have things like that, but it depends on what we're looking for. But if we're looking for like stats of the current season, cfbstats.com is usually my go-to. The only issue with them is they don't always have stats correct. They'll have some mistakes in there. But they're usually my best go-to is cfbstats.com. So Irish Ether says, which Irish tab is the music coming from? So that wasn't a tab. My TV had been paused. I had a show on something that had been paused since the night before. I didn't even realize that it was still on because when I have a TV behind my computer, when it's been obviously not on for a while, it'll sleep. So the other day when all that music was coming on, I didn't know what it was. It was my TV just started playing a commercial, like on like Netflix or something, or like Apple TV or something. I was like, what in the world? Because I'm trying to find these tabs and I'm like, I can't find it anywhere. And it was like, man, I could. So it was the craziest thing, dude. I was like, where the heck is this music coming from? And it happened again like a couple days later. I was like, all right, man, I just got to make sure my TV is off when we do a show. It was crazy, man. That was the weirdest thing. It kind of startled me a little bit. I was like, what is going on? Where is that coming from? Yeah, it was that was a weird day. It was a very weird day.
From Trev's Buy, Sell, Hold Glasses, Apple or Android, and why?
Apple, just because that's what my wife likes and it's what she bought, and we normally do hand-me-downs. She'll buy a new phone and I'll get what she has because I still miss my flip phone. Like if I could, man, I'd have a landline, like just where you're not always, the phone's not always with you. That'd be just great to have. But anyway, Apple just because I don't really have anything beyond that other than I've never had an Android.
I am Apple for phone, and then I'm Windows for computers. It's just what I've always had. So, from Ballpeen Shillelagh, what is the most intriguing period of history to study for you from antiquity to modern day?
Well, there's 2 for me. Obviously, I think the Revolutionary period, like the 50 years before, and then the time of and the 50 years after was obviously significant in my opinion. And then the other one, obviously, as a Christian, I think studying just the 100 years before the time of Jesus, and then the 100 years after, and you think of all the things that happened, and just the role that it played in certain just cultures in the future of Rome, how it impacted the nation of Israel, how it impacted obviously, the phenomenon that came out of that. What were the conditions that led to certain things? Like it's not just the act, it's the conditions that led to that. Like I love studying the influences of the founding fathers, and you think of the things that happened in that period. So like obviously we were very late as a nation to get rid of slavery. But if you look at like the years after, and you look at like what the British Empire started to do in the 19th century, and as far as like with the slave trade and the different things like that. Like it's a very fascinating time because you see that it's not just the events in a lot of these, it's also what are the things that led to those? What were the cultural shifts, the philosophical shifts, the technological shifts that allowed some of these things to happen? And then what was the impact of these things around the world? So those are the two that are most fascinating for me to study. But there's a lot of different intriguing periods. You start thinking of that was the time of this, this was happening at the same time. Like there's a lot of fascinating stuff, but those are my two favorite to study. Yeah. And it's not just the world history of the period of our founding is not just about our founding, but it was the world there was a lot going on in the world at that time. And you think about like what was going on over here with the French fighting the British and all these other things that were happening that led to, our founding. If you think about like the 20, 30 years after, trying to think it was like, why did Napoleon sell the United States what turned out to be the Louisiana Purchase? It's because of wars he was fighting that he needed money for. He was running out of money. And you think about how that impacted the United States of America. And it's just so much fascinating stuff in the period leading up to and the period after. And then of course the period during that I find to just be absolutely fascinating to study. Yeah, that would be mine.
Yeah, I have a couple. I think the Roman Empire is very interesting. More recently, I just think the technological advancements from like 1920 to 1980 are crazy. I would talk a lot to my grandparents about that. My grandma, who passed away in 2021. It's crazy to me that she was born in 1929, and in a year she passed away, there were electric cars and Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, all that stuff. Obviously, they weren't invented in 21, but hearing how quickly that development was, and then the archaic period, I think, with the Greek city-states was also crazy. That was a very interesting time as well. So,
yeah,
those are probably my top three. From Bobby S., if Wagner and Starkovic, am I pronouncing that right?
I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. I just call him Luke.
Okay. If Wagner and Luke wanted to commit at offensive line, would you take both? And if we only take a 4-man class, would that be an acceptable offensive line class, or would you hold on one? Would you hold on one of those?
I don't know that I'd be pushing for Luke's commitment just yet. I think that there's some guys out there that I like a little bit better. I'd probably take Wagner's commitment right now. He's a big old strong kid, could play right tackle, could play guard. I'd want more of either a high level fourth guy, like an Albert Simeon type of guy, or more of a natural tackle. Now, I think Notre Dame likes Luke quite a bit, but I wouldn't be super thrilled about that O-line class, to be honest with you. It'd be a good O-line class, but I don't know that I'd be super thrilled about it. But again, it's super early, Bobby, and this is one of the reasons I don't love talking recruiting. Right now, Luke's 6'5", maybe 250, maybe. How does he develop as a senior? There's just a lot we have to learn about these guys, and that's kind of where I'm at with that one.
From Brandon Gilbert, can you explain what made Brian Van Gorder's defense so bad? Talked to the Arizona State quarterback who played Notre Dame that year, said they were laughing during film study at how, quote, stupid the defensive system was. Ooh. That's
funny. I would not be surprised by that at all. I kind of am trying not to laugh too hard at that, but that's kind of pretty much what I thought. What made it so bad was this. I'll tell you a story, and it'll tell you exactly what we're talking, why it was so bad. But basically, I don't think Brian Van Gorder really understood the defense he was trying to run. If you go back and watch his defenses at like Georgia, when they were really good around 2002, 3, and 4, it was an old school defense. And I don't think he involved with the times. He spent some time in the NFL around Rex Ryan. And I think he tried to be Rex Ryan, but he didn't understand why Rex Ryan did what he did or how he did it. He had basically something he called the Bible. And it was a book with a bunch of blitzes and stuff in it. And in the middle of a game, this was told to me by a Notre Dame coach. In one of their early games together, he starts losing his mind, asking people where the Bible is. Where's the Bible? Somebody get me the Bible. Where's the Bible? I can't find the Bible. And he was referring, the coach was like, what is he talking about? Apparently he had a playbook that had just a bunch of blitzes from his time with the Jets that he would just go to and pull from and just call. And he would do things from a call standpoint that you'd say, okay, that's like coach clinic stuff. Meaning, like, that sounds great on a coach's clinic, like, because we're dropping the nose into here and we're doing this. And look, we've got all the zones covered. I'm like, yeah, you have the zone covered over the middle with a 6'5", 315-pound nose guard. Okay, that's going to work. Okay, you sure got a guy there. Yeah, I don't think it's going to work, though. He had no sense for what to call when. Like, one thing that made Al Golden so good was he just had a knack for, okay, I've sensed a weakness in this team and I'm going to make this call and we're going to find that weak spot. He had no sense of that whatsoever. None. And I think he ran a defense that he didn't understand. But he was too big of an a-hole and too arrogant to understand he should probably do something different. I mean, this is a guy that had the two worst defenses in school history at two different places. People forget Auburn, they were even worse than they were at Notre Dame. The only reason they weren't worse than Notre Dame because at Auburn he didn't have Jalen Smith and a D line that had 4 NFL players on it, and Cole Luke and Max Redfield and guys like that, right? He didn't have them. And so like they were terrible in his 1 year at Auburn. Terrible. And he didn't know how to teach either. He had no idea how to teach whatsoever. So he didn't understand the system. He was a bad teacher, and he wasn't a very well-liked or well-respected person. He didn't treat people the right way. And the big criticism I heard from players like, look, man, we don't mind being yelled at and cussed at. We've been doing that since Pee-wee. But like when you're saying things like, this is why your girlfriend's cheating on you, this is why your mother doesn't love you and stuff like that. Yeah, true story from Notre Dame players. You're like, yeah, man, that's just inappropriate. Like, that's not even like Harry Heastand. Oh, well, Harry Heastand. No, he doesn't. Harry Heastand uses MF like it's a the and an and. It's not, he's not calling you an MFer. He's saying, step your MF and foot here and you block the M. It's coarse language, but it's aggressive, but it's teaching. It's not saying, Q, you're a big, dumb, fat, what I mean? It's not that. And so it was all a train wreck.
That's crazy.
Yeah, all a train wreck.
That's wild.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. From Bobby S., what's your guess on the 40 times of Notre Dame's combine invitees and the verticals of the skill guys as well?
I don't know, man. I don't have any idea. I don't even know who's going to work out. I would imagine Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price will both be in the 4.4s. I imagine Malachi Fields, I think, will probably run a low 4.5. I think he's a little faster than some people think. Some people compared to Keon Coleman, I think he's a little faster than Keon was. I don't know that I really care. Eli Raridan, I think, will probably run in the 4.6 range. He'll probably have a pretty good vertical. Malachi will have a pretty good vertical. That's about it.
Yeah. Yeah, verticals, I couldn't tell you. 40 times, I would be I would be pretty surprised if J Love and JD weren't in the low 4.4s. I would be pretty surprised.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
From Trev's Buy Sell Hold Glasses, 4th and goal at the 1. You're on defense. What linebacker are you trusting to make a run stop? Manti Te'o, Jalen Smith, or Drake Bowen? Oh.
Manti.
Yeah.
With all due respect to those other two guys, that's Manti.
I'll say this. I'll take it a step further because I'm with you. It's Manti. If it was like a stretch run play, I would hear out an argument for Jalen Smith just for his ability to get to the edge. But by and large, I'm still going Manti. Brandon Gilbert, if Notre Dame had to play at least one team from every conference, even the Sun Belt, which one teams would you pick? Also, which would be the neutral site and where?
Oh, my goodness. How many conferences are there, Trev? Give me a second. I'm going to pull this up.
Like,
all right. So we've got the American, the ACC, the Big 12, the Big 10, the Conference USA, MAC, Mountain West, SEC, Sun Belt, and then the Pac-12. So there's 10. And then we'll go Independence 11. So I'll play UConn. Okay, we'll give you that. American, it's Navy. That's an easy one. ACC, if I could play any ACC team. Miami.
Yep.
If I could play any Big 12 team. Honestly, it's the one they're playing this year. I don't know what it is about Notre Dame and BYU. I just kind of like the idea of that becoming a rivalry. I could not care less about Texas Tech or Utah or Houston, either Arizona school, the Kansas schools, TCU maybe. That actually might be the only other one I would do, and then that would be kind of my neutral site game. I'd play it in Arlington. That would only be the only other potential option for me. Big Ten, if I can only play one Big Ten team, it'd be USC. If USC refused to play us, it'd probably be Michigan or Michigan. Actually, no, it's probably Michigan State, as I've explained a million times. Conference USA, do I have to play someone? Liberty, and I'd have that play at Liberty so then I could go home and spend a couple days with my family before I drive out to Lynchburg and play that game. The MAC, Ball State, because it's an in-state school. I don't really care much about that one. Let's see here, Trev. The Mountain West. This would be a terrible schedule, Trev. It'd be such a bad schedule. Either Boise or San Diego State, probably, because in San Diego State, I'd say, hey, let's make that a road game in November, so I can be in San Diego in November for a Saturday instead of South Bend, Indiana. But Air Force would be fine too. Between Washington State and Oregon State, I'd rather play Oregon State. I still have some payback for them. You know, I know that Notre Dame beat them most recently, but they beat Notre Dame twice in a bowl game. Notre Dame's not only beat them once. We got another spanking we got to hand them, Trev. SEC, if I can play one SEC team, Bama. I want to beat Bama's tail, man, so bad.
Yeah.
Sun Belt. That's an easy one. Old Dominion. I'd want it to be at Foreman Field so I could literally just go home to my parents, stay there for a couple days, hang out with my family, get up Saturday morning from my parents' house, drive to Foreman Field. I think they still play there. Cover the game and then go back home to my parents' house afterwards, have my mom cook dinner. That'd be awesome. Or go to Captain George's. That'd be awesome. That'd be such a terrible schedule. It'd be so terrible. Gosh, that'd be so bad. Oh, goodness gracious.
From Seth Clark, who is a player that you were excited for the future that not many people are talking about?
That's an interesting player that I'm excited. Nolan James Jr., probably the first one that popped in my head. Not a lot of people talk about Nolan James Jr. That's yeah. Yeah. That'd probably be mine, Trev. No, yeah. Nolan James Jr. That nobody's talking about? Yeah, that'd be it. I feel like everybody else that I could possibly think about would get talked about. I can't say James. I was thinking about saying James Flanigan Jr. or James Flanigan. It's not Jr., but because he's not talked about enough. But we had a question on him already, so I can't be like the guy that we got a question about 10 minutes ago. That would be the guy we're not talking about. He just talked about him. So I'd go Nolan James Jr. That'd be one.
Yeah, that was one of mine that I was going to talk about was Devin Fitzgerald. He's kind of like my sleeper of the 2026 class, but we also got a question about him earlier. It's weird to think that I was going to add somebody who's the kid of Larry Fitzgerald that not a lot of people are talking about, but just with the offensive class, a lot of the attention goes to Ian Premer, the two running backs, Caden Finley, Bubba Frazier. I'm excited to see what Devin Fitzgerald can do in this receiving core here in a couple of years. So he's probably mine.
Before we transition to part 3, Trev, I wanted to bring up this super chat from Patrick Earwood 3225. He says, y'all pray for me proposing to my girlfriend on Sunday. And how funny it would be if he didn't know she was listening to Irish Breakdown to get to know him better and this pop up. But assuming she's not, congratulations, dude. Super happy for you. I mean, finding my wife and marrying my wife is outside of, handing my life over to Christ, man, it's the biggest, best decision I've ever made in my life. And I'm happy about it. And I'm happier now than I was 19 years ago, 18 years ago when I proposed to her. So I hope you have someone like that. And I wish you all the best, man. That's awesome. Congratulations. I'd love to hear how it goes. Because that would definitely ruin the surprise.
Maybe.
But it would be such an awesome ruining because ruined because she's listening to this show to try to get to know your passions better. So yeah, it would definitely suck and ruin the surprise, but it'd actually be for a good cause. And it would mean that, like, okay, you got to keep her. It doesn't mean you don't. If she's not listening, you still may have to keep her, but it would be a no-brainer if that was the case. But that's awesome, man. We're happy for you.
Yeah, and you could play it off too, Patrick. She'd be like, this was all a part of the plan, and then you propose on Saturday.
Yeah.
Get her thinking, still catch her off guard. But congratulations, man.
Yeah.
If you're anything like me, you're going to black out. You're going to forget what you say. I completely forgot what I said. Lord only knows. The only thing that matters is once I was done, the ring was on her finger, and she said yes. So.
She said yes. I'm glad she said yes. That'd have been real awkward if you were like, all right, cool. So trying to jam the ring on her finger. And she's like, I said no. No means no, like, Trevor.
Nope. No,
I said no, Trevor. Like, I just assumed you were going to say yes.
Oh, man. That's awesome. Good luck, buddy.
Yeah.
Getting into part 3 of the Irish Breakdown podcast, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. It's the Friday Free-For-All Mailbag. And we're answering a lot of awesome questions here. We've gotten a ton. In here, and we're going to keep things rolling here. Getting into the
I'm going to bring this one up to start off part 3, Trev, because my experience with Miami fans, it hasn't been positive. But this is from a Miami fan, and I really appreciate this. So, I was just bashing Miami fans earlier, but I really appreciate this. So I wanted to get this one and kick this segment off with this one.
Appreciate your daily comments. Miami fan, but enjoy your guys' content. Even though we disagree sometimes, you two keep it real. Need some tips for traveling up on November 7th.
Number one, I would encourage you to look in surrounding areas for hotels and just be willing to drive 30 minutes. Elkhart, where Trevor's from, sometimes will have some rates that are cheaper. And it's what, Trev? 25, 30-minute drive, easy drive right into South Bend.
Mm-hmm.
And then out there, depending on which hotel you're at, there's a Texas Roadhouse. There's, the Red Lobster closed down over there. You know that, right? The one by Texas Roadhouse in Olive Garden. Yeah, it closed down. There's a Buffalo Wild Wings right there. So yeah, I know, right?
Well, I'm not coming up any.
I know, never visiting my family ever again. But no, and so did that Italian restaurant that was right down the street. Forget the name of it. It was right beside the gas station. That closed down as well. So,
I saw some of the Callahans closed down. That's really upsetting. That was a premier hangout spot tail end of high school because it was open 24 hours.
Yep. But that would be something I would encourage you to do. Check out prices to South Bend. It's a lot cheaper to fly into South Bend now. If cost is a big factor for you, it better be over $100 difference than flying into Chicago, because between getting a rental car that's going to be cheaper or more expensive in Chicago, paying about $20 each way in toll money. It's about $15-20 each way. And then just gas money, it's just going to be a lot cheaper. And the other thing I would encourage you to do, if you've never been to Notre Dame, I would encourage you to try to get in and spend as much time walking around campus as possible. Whatever you feel about the Notre Dame football program, it's an amazing campus. It really is. And Notre Dame fans, for the most part, are really welcoming people to other fan bases, as long as you don't just act like a you-know-what. And it's just it's an amazing campus. It really is. And it's the area around the stadium has really taken off, Eddy Street and all that. So a lot of cool places to eat. If you can try, it's hard to do. Get into Rocco's, have their pizza. It's exceptional. But just spend as much time as you can. Don't make it like a game day trip. Make it a weekend. That's the best way to get the full effect of Notre Dame. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, another thing that you could do as well as far as lodging, I've started to look at Airbnbs because they don't hike up their prices as much as what hotels will. I mean, you could find a hotel in Elkhart that non-football season prices, it's like $100 a night. Saturdays in the fall, they're $400 a night, even sometimes in Elkhart. So
if you can get into Elkhart early enough, that's the way to have a chance to not be paying ridiculous rates. It's so crazy, dude.
Yep. But I would definitely look at Airbnbs. We found one of our last trips up there, Lauren and I, because we brought up a group of friends, and neither of my parents' places are big enough to host a group. And so we found an Airbnb in Niles, Michigan. The distance from Niles, Michigan to Notre Dame's campus is almost the same as Elkhart to Notre Dame's campus. And so that's another area that you could look at as well. Those prices don't get as expensive either. And then the campus is awesome. Try to check out the grotto if you can. Always a line, but it's a beautiful place to go see. It's really fantastic.
All right, we got that question. And here's another one, Trev. This was interesting from Tom Redinger.
What are your opinions of Caleb Downs? Many are calling him the best safety in years, top 3 talent in the draft. I don't see it. His production is mid. 6 interceptions and 3 forced fumbles in 3 years. What am I missing?
Well, number one, I don't know that I evaluate interceptions as the only barometer for how good a safety is. It's also about how you're used, and also when you're not being thrown at very often, you're going to have pretty low numbers. I think Caleb Downs is an outstanding prospect. I think some of the best safety in 20 years is a little bit of hyperbole, but he's without a doubt the best safety in this draft class. He's a very explosive athlete, in my opinion. Very smart football player, very physical football player. He gave up 26 receptions this year for only 171 yards. That's 6.6 yards per reception. You know what that means, Trevor? That means that they counted receptions being like he's coming from depth and he's driving on a stick route and he's drilling it, or he's driving on he's playing like robber or flats and they catch a little slide route and he drills it. He's not getting beat deep. You know what I mean? And so I think Caleb's just an outstanding all-around football player. Good size for safety, 6 foot solid size for a safety. He's a good tackler. Obviously we know Jaden Greathouse got him a couple years ago. At times he'll kind of go a little bit out of control. He hasn't allowed. Here's the thing: 3 touchdowns or 6 interceptions. But here's the thing: he hasn't given up a touchdown pass since his freshman year at Alabama. I mean, he's a pretty darn good football player. He hasn't given up a pass reception over 34 yards since his freshman year at Alabama. So I think he's an outstanding football player. I do. Just strong all-around player. Do I think he is to the safety position what Jeremiah Love is to the running back position? That could maybe be debatable, but I'd probably lean towards clearly the number 1 safety in this draft class. I think he's a heck of a football player. Is he the next Ed Reed? I mean, that's an unfair comparison. But I think he's excellent, Trev. I don't know. What are your thoughts on K? I'll put it like this. If he wanted to come to Notre Dame first as a senior in the portal, I'd take him in a heartbeat.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
And we love Notre Dame safety room.
Yes.
Like he's a really exceptional talent. I like Caleb Downs a lot. Look, you can't always just look at interceptions and forced fumbles to let that dictate your whole opinion. I mean, Xavier Watts had 13 interceptions in 2 years, and he got taken in the 3rd round. So it's not necessarily just about what level of production that you produce. I think he's a very sure tackler. But like with any NFL comp, because this is the year that this guy could be the next Randy Moss, Tony Gonzalez, Ed Reed, Deion Sanders. You're going to hear that every single year, right? But like with any NFL draft comparison or any professional comp, the truth is always somewhere in between. Is he the best safety prospect in 2 decades? No. Right. And I don't have to do research to do that. It's just the odds of that being true are just slim to none.
Well, and just when you watch the film, you see a heck of a prospect, but I don't see generational talent.
No.
Just like I don't say that about Jeremiah Love. I mean, do we not remember Bijan Robinson from a couple of years ago? Do we not remember Derrick Henry? I mean, it's like, dude, he's the best safety in this class. Jeremiah Love's the best running back in this class. I do think some of that stuff is hyperbole. So, I mean, somebody's in the chat compared to Kyle Hamilton. I would not even waste time comparing them because they're very different players. They play the game very differently. How you're going to use them is very different. So no, I don't. I think he's a absolute top 10 NFL draft pick.
Yep.
Would I take him in the top 5? No, because I just don't value safeties like that. Would I take him 8 to 12? Absolutely, because I value safeties when you're that good to that level. Well, that's how I look at it.
And he's not even in terms of like overrated. And when I mean overrated, I don't mean bad. I just mean just overtaken in the NFL draft. He's not even the Ohio State player that I'd be talking about. I've seen a lot of mock drafts with Carnell Tate going as like the number 4 overall pick to the Titans. Like Carnell Tate is a good wide receiver. He is not a top 5 NFL draft pick.
Agree. I like you and I both agree. Cardinal's a very good football player.
Heck yeah.
No. Top 5 pick. No. I don't see. There's this draft is very weird. And part of it is, and look, Cardinal's a very good football player. But part of my issue is it's not a great draft class. And so you're going to get certain guys just picked higher than you would think their talent would otherwise be. Somebody said Arvell Reese. My problem with Arvell Reese is where's he going to play?
That's my biggest concern with him too. I hope that whatever team he goes to, they don't give him like the Isaiah Simmons treatment that when he got coming out of Clemson, where D coordinators just had no idea where to put him. That I'm hoping that doesn't happen with Arvell Reese.
I don't know that he's a pure off-ball linebacker. Can he be a pure edge rusher? I don't know. I think he's going to have to go to the right D coordinator. If you got the right D coordinator that can use him appropriately, I think he could be a really good player. But yeah, I think next year's draft is going to be way different.
Oh, next year's draft.
Somebody said, how much better is he than Schuler? He's just a more explosive all-around athlete than Adon Schuler. I would say that Adon is probably a little bit more instinctive on the ball, but they have similar issues as tacklers. They'll miss at times coming from space, but overall sound tacklers. I would say that Adon is maybe a skosh more instinctive, but they're both very instinctive. But the difference is Caleb is just a more explosive athlete than Adon. That's the only really the difference. But I think Adon Schuler's a heck of a player. Is Caleb Downs better? Yeah, he's better. Yeah, he's better.
Yeah, I mean, same. Respectfully, like I love Adon Schuler. I mean, we talked about him ad nauseum when we were going through the breakout shows.
Speaking of underrated players, right?
Yeah, but with that being said, I think they were in the same recruiting class, and one of them is going to the NFL after his 3rd year of college, and the other one very well might play his 5th year in college. All journeys are different.
Yeah,
it's not copy paste.
Well, and like Tom says, Adon had more forced fumbles, more breakups, same INTs. Number one is teams haven't spent the last 2 years trying to avoid Adon Schuler. Number one, they were trying to avoid Xavier Watts, and Adon Schuler was the beneficiary of that. I would say that if you look at like Adon this year and you look at his production this year, Adon had half the picks he had last year, he had fewer picks this year than he did last year. Does that mean Adon was not as good of a player? Or does it mean teams were avoiding him a little bit more this year, which is why Tay Johnson had more interceptions? So I don't know that I would say that it's fair to compare numbers from one system to another system. If you want to argue that Adon Schuler's a better player, I'm not going to argue with you. I think Adon Schuler's a really good football player. I think Caleb's tackle numbers are more. His missed tackle numbers are better than Adon's. Adon the last 2 years gave up 9.6 and 11.7 yards per catch. Caleb Downs, I believe, is in the. I think he was at 6.6 this year, and he was, I think, below 10 last year as well. So I think if you're just using like traditional numbers to evaluate, say he was at 9.4 last year. So, I mean, his numbers in that regard are better. Adon has only one more pick the last 2 years, but Adon gave up a touchdown. Caleb hasn't given up a touchdown. Adon's more pass breakups. But again, that is partly also due to how they're used. And so I just think it's unfair to just look at like raw like numbers like tackles, interceptions, forced fumbles to compare players. I also don't want to spend too much time trying to convince you that Caleb Downs is better than Adon Schuler, because then it starts to come across like I'm down on Adon. I think Adon's a heck of a football player. I just think Caleb's better.
Yeah, the interceptions, Tom, is just such a misleading stat to base off of for defensive backs, just in general. I think Pat Surtain is the best cornerback in the NFL right now. He had one pick all year. So just because of his lack of interception, I mean, the goal is you stay away from premier players. Mm-hmm. I think of a year when Trayvon Diggs had 11 interceptions in 2021, but he was not the best cornerback in the NFL. He also gave up over 1,000 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns. The same could be said for the safety position. So you got to look more into receptions allowed, missed tackles, number of tackles.
Just the film.
Yeah.
Like Todd Light in 1989 made 8 interceptions, was an All-American. The next year he only made 2 interceptions. Did Todd become a less effective player, or did teams say, we ain't throwing number 1 anymore?
From 22 to 23.
Right, exactly. I mean, I think that's a big part of it, which honestly is what makes Leonard Moore's 5 interceptions this year so impressive. Because he didn't get thrown at a whole lot. But yeah, I just think it's you look at the skill set, you look at the production, you look at the overall game. I just think there's some moments in his career where you're like, man. Yeah, and look, you're not going to get any beef from us when it comes to Don being underappreciated. I still don't understand how a Don Schuler doesn't get more national love. I do not get that. We said that during the preseason when we were looking at safety rankings. How was a Don not ranked higher? Like, did they not watch him in the postseason last year? Like, he's really flipping good. You think of the interception he had against Penn State that got negated. It wasn't his penalty that wiped out that interception. It was Jack Kaiser's. You're talking to 2 guys that think the world of a Don Schuler and think that he's a heck of a player. I just think Caleb Downs is just a better player. So I hope a Don proves us wrong this year, though. I'd be fine with that. But the biggest thing for me is it's just the explosive. I think what we're going to see is when a Don goes to the combine, his athletic numbers won't be on the same level as what Caleb's are. And I think that's really the thing that ultimately settles it.
Sure.
But yes, you are correct, though. The one thing we can agree with you on, Tom, for sure, a Don is very underappreciated. And I'll just say this. There were some schools down south that were offering him 7-figure deals to leave Notre Dame. And he said no. Coaches know how good a Don is. Trust me, they know. He's a very good football player.
From our guy, Aaron, in 2026, would you rather play a first-round game because of the long layoff due to the bye?
Yes. I've been very adamant about that. I would much rather Notre Dame get a first-round home game. Number one, I want there to be a home game for the community. I selfishly want there to be a home game. I think also the time off. Look, the last 2 years, maybe it changes next year, Trev, and I think that it might, because I think the top 4 seeds next year are just going to be better quality than the top 4 seeds the last 2 years. I think there's going to be a bigger gap between the top 3 to 4 teams than there has been in past years. 7 of the 8 teams that played in the first round won in the second round. Now, in 2024, you and I argued that that's because we felt the 4 teams that played in the first round were better than the teams that got byes. Because of you had Boise State getting a bye. You had Arizona State getting a bye. Yes, Ohio State wasn't ranked as high as Oregon, and they shouldn't have been. But if Ohio State was playing their game, they're the best team in the country. And then, of course, you had Notre Dame playing Georgia. And you and I said at the time, Notre Dame's a better team than Georgia. That's why we thought they were going to beat Georgia, and they did by 13. So this year's a little bit different, though, Trev. I think you could argue that the better team didn't necessarily win. I don't know that Miami's definitely a better team than Ohio State. They were that day. Was it the game against, like, if Miami would have played against Ohio State like they did against Texas A&M, they're out. They're done. They lose to Ohio State. So, Alabama played, it was like kind of 2 not very good teams. 8-9, what were the other ones, Trev? You had Ole Miss playing Georgia. That was a rematch game, but I still think Georgia's the better team than Ole Miss. They lost, and then I'm drawing. Oregon played Texas Tech.
Yep.
I think Oregon's probably better than Texas Tech, as we saw, but are they 23-0 better than Texas Tech, or was Texas Tech rusty because they hadn't played in a month? I think that's a fair thing to ask and to look at. Plus, not only that, but then, of course, I'd love to have a home game at Notre Dame Stadium.
Oh, yeah. The home game at Notre Dame Stadium for the playoffs is definitely a huge bonus. But look, making a run in the playoffs is just as much about what kind of momentum you build going into your run as you do just the readiness of your team. To your point that you just laid out. So, yeah, I'd much rather play a first-round game. Much rather.
This is for you, Trev. So I'll read this one. This is from Irish Lions. Thank you very much for this. He goes, with golf around the corner, you can only choose one for the rest of your life. 320-yard drives, hit every fairway, or never 3-putt.
Oh, gosh.
I'll give my answer just because while you think about it, 300-yard drive, 20-yard drives, because I would just rather just go to the driving range. I'm not a golfer. So if I could just go to the range and just smash the mess out of the football or the golf ball every time, I would certainly be fine doing that. That's just because I don't play golf. So did you think of yours yet, Trev? Which one you'd rather do?
I'm going to say hit every fairway and just have a good approach shot. Look, if every single golf course that I played was a par 4 or par 5 was just dead straight, then yeah, I would do a 320-yard drive. But if you're playing a course that dogs right or left at 200 yards, hitting a 320-yard drive, unless you want to cut the corner, I'd rather hit every fairway. Never 3-putting. Like, I am not a great golfer. I'm like an 80 to 90 golfer, so I'm fine if I go out and play, but I can confidently say that I rarely 3-putt. So that's not really an issue of mine. I would so much rather hit every fairway and have a good approach shot into the green. That'd be mine.
Mm-hmm. Bill Walsh said this: a home game probably means we lost the regular season game this year. Notre Dame will start the season high and stay high if they win their games. I get all that, but that wasn't necessarily the question. The question wasn't about 2026 as much as it's just like, what would you rather do? I wish Notre Dame would have honestly advocated for, hey, we still don't think we should get a bye. Like, I would have fought for that. I'd have said, listen, we have enough bad publicity. If we're going to get this automatic bid, then the one thing that we think we're going to give back to kind of help out is we can't get a 1 through 4 seed in a 12 team. In a 16 team playoff, give Notre Dame whatever seed you want to give them. It's a different deal. But in this format, we don't think we should be given a first round bye. It's not fair to the teams that are in a conference.
Yeah.
That's what I would have said.
Yeah.
But that's not. No, they didn't have to fight for that because they just gave them what they wanted. So, yeah. Okay. That's partly why I would like the 16-team playoff, because I do think it's unfair that you're punishing the best teams in the current 12-team format.
Yeah.
I do. I think the top teams are being punished in the 12-team format.
Oh, they are. I mean, because the argument of, well, you play one less game. It's like, well, that's worked out for one team, and they played a team that probably shouldn't have been in.
Yeah.
So, that's how I look at that. I think every team in the playoff should have the opportunity to play at home, which is why you're starting to hear some coaches be like, I think the quarterfinals should also be played on campuses.
Right,
it's
which
like,
I think is stupid. Yeah. Go to 16, play the first round and at home, the home field of the top teams, and then call it a day.
100%.
Yeah. Yep. All right. We got one here from, so that was from Irish Lions. We got this one from Andrew Gilmore. This came after we were talking about Dylan McCullough and the good job he did. So this, the context for what Andrew's question was about Venables.
Yeah, it says, will Venables survive, though? It doesn't seem like one and done in the college football playoffs did much for him. No extension. Well,
number one, I think people make too much of whether guys got extensions or not. And honestly, a lot of times when you get an extension after just one good season, it's usually not necessarily a great thing for you. It's a PR thing where, yeah, you got extra years, but we got a smaller buyout if we're going to fire you.
And he got a contract extension. It wasn't after the season, but after the 23 season, he signed one in the summer of 24. He signed like a 6-year extension.
Which was dumb to do that after one season.
But, agreed. Yeah, agreed completely. But it's a lot. What you'll see some coaches do now, too, is they'll get contract extensions just when they're getting a lot of other attention from other places, the NFL, other teams. I just don't think Brett Venables, after they're one and done in the playoffs, to your point, Andrew, was generating a lot of buzz from like the Giants or the Dolphins or anything like that. So,
yep. Regarding Oklahoma, Trev, I mean, look, extension doesn't mean a hill of beans, even if he got one. If they go 6-6 again, he's out.
Sure.
I actually like this Oklahoma team more than I liked last year's Oklahoma team with what they've got coming back. I mean, we did our D-line rankings yesterday, and that's one of my question marks on Oklahoma is going to be How good is their D-line going to be? They've got some talented young players that haven't done a lot yet that need to step up on end. But their secondary should be maybe even better this year. I think their offensive line and run game should be better. Getting John Mateer back, hopefully without the hand injury. Isaiah Santanga came back. They got some good players in the portal at wide receiver. All their running backs come back. Like, I actually like this Oklahoma team more than I like last year's Oklahoma team. I think they're built for success. I think last year they benefited from that really good D-line, and they lost a lot of guys from that D-line. I also think the SEC was not very good at the top, and their schedule set up nicely to where, they didn't have to play Georgia. They didn't have to play a couple other teams that I think probably would have beat them. I mean, you saw they were outclassed by Ole Miss. But they beat Alabama. Yeah, Alabama sucked. I don't know what else evidence you need to know that Alabama sucked other than that. They were a very average team. So I think this team is built for success more than last year's team was.
Absolutely.
Especially going into year 2 of the OC's tenure. I like this team. I think they're a legit top 10 team this year. I said last year that Oklahoma earned a playoff berth based on their resume, but they were not a top 10 team. Not at all. This year, I think they have a legit shot to be an actual top 10 team. Meaning one that, like, not only does your resume say you are, but your film says you are. And that's the thing we said last year is their resume was a top 10 resume, but their film was not that of a top 10 team.
Yeah, 100%. And the same thing with Venables. Andrew, I almost take the opposite approach. Like, will he survive? It's like, could we talk about him potentially thriving? Now he knows what goes into getting to a playoff and knows what. He was still a first-time head coach at this spot. Yeah. And last year was his 3rd year. Does he now understand what it takes to be a successful head coach? Maybe. I don't know the answer to that question, but I'm with Brian. I like the makeup of their roster this year.
Well, and I hope he continues to call plays because I think his assessment was spot on. Nobody's going to call plays the way that I want them called more than me, better than me. And I think that is absolutely true. Now, here's the rub, Trev. Does he break the cycle? His cycle's been weird. 6-7, 10-3, 6-7, 10-3. Is this the year they kind of, okay, we've found our medium here. We found our floor here. And this is when now we're going to get back to playing Sooner football. Well, we're every year. We're a 9-10-1 team in the regular season every year. And then when we have those really good veteran teams, we're competing for an SEC championship. But I hope that he continues to call plays because I think that's what worked for them.
Yeah, 100%.
Their defense looked way different last year with him calling plays. And Clemson's defense has never looked the same, like ever, since he left. His defense that he called last year with Oklahoma looked very similar to like that 2018 Clemson defense. Strong, led by the D-line, impactful talent on the back end. Yeah. Coverages, just mixing up coverages. You think you're seeing one thing, you see something different, little bit of positionless football to a degree. He was one of the originators of that at the college level. The stuff he was doing with Isaiah Simmons back in 18 and 19 is stuff that NFL teams are now doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great defensive mind.
Yeah.
I still have questions about how good of a head coach he is, but by him calling plays, he's enhancing his head coaching impact because he just went out and hired one of the best defensive coordinators in college football and paid him nothing. You know what I mean? It's like you didn't have to hire another person that's as good as you and pay, you know what I mean? Like you went out and I'm the D coordinator. Yeah. So I'm paying you to be a position coach. You know what I mean? So I think that made a ton of sense.
Absolutely. From AFMOSND, with the changes on the defensive staff, who are 1 or 2 players you think may get a new look and surprise us with more playing time this season?
Armo Mukum is one that pops into my mind as an opportunity there. I could see, I think, Trev, you talked about one yesterday, potentially Ethan Long.
Yeah.
Could potentially be one. I'm curious to see what this coaching decisions does for a Dallas Golden. He's one.
Keeping my eye on Cole Mullins. Yep. Hopefully now they find him a permanent home and just leave him there and let him cook.
Yes. Thank you.
Just Charlie Partridge.
Yep.
If you do nothing more than just maintain the same level of D-line that you had last year and you get Cole Mullins a permanent home, I'm going to like you.
Yep.
So just
100%.
Yeah, that'll be a big one. From Salty, what is or was your favorite sports-based television cable series?
I'm trying to even remember ones that were about sports. I never watched a lot of the ones, and like I didn't watch the one with The Rock where he was an agent. I never watched that. I didn't watch the one that they did on the Lakers recently. Can you think of any series or television or cable series that were about sports other than that? I mean, like Sam Malone from Cheers was a former baseball player. They would always have sports athletes in there, but that's clearly not about sports based. Can you think of any?
Mine is probably Friday Night Lights.
I never watched that. Yeah,
that was a big show of mine going through high school and then college. Once he left East Dillon, once the head coach left East Dillon, I just stopped watching it. That was I think one of Michael B. Jordan's like first big breaks, is he was like the starting quarterback at West Dillon for the West Dillon Lions, I think. But
so the coach in Friday Night Lights in the TV series left schools.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. Yeah, never watched that. Never watced that.
Yeah,
surprising there isn't more of that. You know what I mean?
I know. And they've tried with some shit. Like I know a big one is, I'm very picky when it comes to sports movies, especially football. It's like I love some storylines of them, but if like the football doesn't look good, I just can't buy into the show. That's why I was never able to watch All American. That show was corny.
Which one was that?
That's a newer one. It came out a couple years ago, and it's just follows this family's journey pretty much. But it's the actual football in it just looks ridiculous. It's stuff that you're never it's very Hollywooded up. And
I think sports are better as movies.
Yeah.
Because a series, you have to have a lot more of the actual action.
Yeah.
I think they make better movies, but I'm trying. I can't think of it. Oh, there was one about a girl that could pitch, and she made it to like the majors or something. Like, do you remember that? I watched that a little bit, but I couldn't get into it. But yeah, so interesting.
From our guy Aaron Valario, is there any Notre Dame team from 2000 to 2020 that legitimately could have won a national championship?
Well, as they were constructed, no.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why they didn't. You know, the 2015 team had a roster to win it, but they didn't have the coaching to win it. So as they were constructed, Aaron, no, there wasn't. The only team that you could maybe argue, well, actually, you know what? I'll take that back. 2018 was a team that was capable of winning a championship. There was only one team. Somebody said this in the chat the other day, and I've said it before in the past, and I completely agree. There was only one team that was going to beat that 2018 Notre Dame team, and that was Clemson.
Yeah.
I think they'd have beat Oklahoma, and I think they'd have beat Alabama. I think they would have had a tougher time with Oklahoma than they would have Alabama.
Agreed completely. I mean, that's always been the rub with us Notre Dame fans. Is there's always that one missing ingredient. In 2005, you had the offense to win a championship, especially if Raymond McKnight stayed healthy.
Mm-hmm.
You just didn't have the defense. In 2012, you had a defense that could win you a national championship. You didn't have the offense to, though.
Yep.
You know, in 15, you didn't have the defensive coordinator. In 18, you didn't have the head coach to win you one. Mm-hmm. You know, there's always something. It's still, to this day, it still makes me so mad that with a roster like that Brian Kelly had in 2018, you coached to not lose. Mm-hmm. With a roster like that, I mean,
Yep. Very, very, very frustrating. All right, let's get to some more here. We've got one from, here's an interesting one, Trev, not really related to football, but we always get some of these in the offseason. This is from Matthew Kettner.
Familiar with the Shroud of Turin, and that it recently showed AB positive blood type and pollen around the forehead from a thistle thorny plant found from the Middle East around the time of Jesus.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. It just doesn't necessarily do anything for me. You don't know what so for those who don't know, the Shroud of Turin is basically a shroud that goes over a dead body that is allegedly from the time of Jesus, and people claim that it is, you know, it's obviously it was used over Jesus before he was resurrected. I don't know how you could prove definitively that it is Jesus. Do you have a body type? We don't know what he looks like, right? Like I know there's like that European Jesus that we like to, have in our homes and stuff like that. That's like super pale. Like, sure, I'm sure a guy living in the Middle East in the 2,000 years ago was like, looked like he hadn't seen the sun in 5 years. I'm sure that's, who's a carpenter. I'm sure that was, totally how he looked. But I just find it to be unconvincing. And honestly, I don't need it. Like my journey to faith was for one was an intellectual one. I don't know that the shout of turn is one that is an overly intellectual engagement for me. Number one was obviously, I grew up in the church like a lot of people, but like church was like, okay, like God was just kind of like this eternal life insurance policy. Like I'll say I believe in God just in case there is a heaven and hell. I want to be on the right side of it when I die, but I'm going to live my life the way that I want to live my life and do what I want to do and those kind of things. And so, but when I finally kind of truly wanted to like, okay, is this thing like legit or not? It was very much an intellectual journey for me. And so it was more of like, okay, it was okay, is the historical Jesus a real person? And there's far, far, far more compelling evidence for me than the Shroud of Turin. There are actual writings from people that weren't believers, whether it's Josephus or who's the Roman historian? Not Tacitus. Oh, I forget who it was, but there's writings from that time that talk about it. If you listen to Gary Habermas makes the conversation about his stuff about Paul's writings. We have, second century people that knew people that, made the claims they did. So like, he was a real person. There's philosophical arguments about was he who he said he was and those type of things. And so I went down that journey and it just got to the point, I studied everything because I honestly, to be real with y'all, I was looking for a reason not to believe. I really was. Cause I wanted to, as someone who grew up in the church, I wanted to be able to live my life my way without the guilt. That's what I was looking for. And if I could convince myself that Jesus wasn't real and he wasn't who he said he was, then I could live my life however I wanted to live my life guilt-free. Because, there is no this. And the more I studied looking for that, the more convicted I was that I was wrong and that he was who he lived, which no real scholar denies, that he was who he said he was and did what he said he did. And then, I studied okay, well, that's fine. I believe he was, but is the Bible really reliable? I'm looking for all these outs to convince myself that I can live how I want to live and not have that. And it just got to the point where all my attempts to find that just kind of failed. And it got to the point where it's like, there's a book that somebody wrote. I've never read it, but it's got a great title. It's like, I don't have enough faith to be an atheist. And I found, sadly, that most people that I know that are atheists because of an experience of dealing with a Christian someone who portrays themselves as a Christian who does in no way, shape, form, or fashion live in that way. And that's why I try to be careful about, how preachy I get. Cause I'm like, I don't want people like, do you see how that guy is or that guy is, he speaks for, no, I don't speak for Jesus. Jesus speaks for Jesus, and he defines Christianity, not that D-bag pastor who cheated on his wife and stole from the church. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not what Christianity is all about. But the further I looked into it, I couldn't deny it. And I was in my late 20s. I think I was about Trevor's age about when that happened for me. So maybe a tad. No, I was a little bit. I was 26 actually. No, it was 2006. No, I was 28. I was 28 when I truly gave my life to Christ. And I was 30 when I got baptized in the Platte River in Colorado. So, but it was an intellectual thing for me. And then my faith grew from just experiences that I have with God and things that have happened in my life and how, prayers are answered. And sometimes when prayers aren't answered, that I don't need a Shroud of Turin to convince me more. And I don't know how convincing it could be for anybody else because there's really there's no like, hey, you're from the generation, you're Jesus's half brothers, great grandkid, and so we can test your DNA towards an AB blood type of somebody else. Like we don't know what he looks like. We don't know what his blood type was. So to me, I don't think that it's overly compelling. And say, well, but it shows certain things of we know that crucifixion was a thing back then. That nobody disputes that. So it just isn't something that I need, to be completely honest with you. I have had enough experiences in my life, and it's just how things have happened. I've had enough research and things to where I couldn't deny it as much as I wanted to. And now I seek to embrace it as much as I can. And so that's why I've just never really dove too far into the Shroud of Turin. I think it's a distraction in a lot of ways, to be honest with you. But if it's something that leads somebody to true salvation, then great. That's wonderful. If it allows someone to at least be open to the idea of Jesus enough to then do their research of the other things, then wonderful. Just for me, I didn't find it overly compelling. So, but yeah, I just like I said, Trev, I tried really hard to find reasons not to believe, because I really wanted to live my life however I wanted to live my life, and I just couldn't do it. So that's where it's at for me. And it all started, honestly, after tragedy. My best friend was murdered, and I just went to a very, very, very dark place. And I had some people praying for me and telling me I should do this. And I was like, screw it. I just want to live my life the way I want to live my life, with no guilt. And unfortunately, it ended up going the opposite direction for me. So, yeah, that's where it's at. Somebody in the chat mentioned The Case for Christ. Trev, I think I've mentioned this to you. I would strongly recommend anyone that's just kind of wondering about that type of thing to read that book. And if you have a Bible and you're curious about it, I would encourage you to start with the Gospel of John and then move to the Gospel of Romans, and from there, wherever the Holy Spirit leads you. But that was a book for me that was very impactful, because it was so much similar to my own journey of I was trying to prove it wrong. And the harder I worked to prove it wrong, or to prove that it wasn't real, the more convinced I was that it was. And that's kind of what led it to me. So yeah, that's where I'm at on that.
From Tom Redinger, I know we didn't know how good Miami's D-line was going to be last year, pretty much carried them to the national championship game. Are there any defensive lines out there that could be on that level this year?
Yeah, I mean, speaking of our show yesterday, I think Oregon's could be that way. I think Notre Dame's could be that way. I think that Miami's and Texas both have a chance to be that way. They need a little bit. I mean, like, look, a year ago, we were like, what version of Ruben Bain is really going to show up?
Mm-hmm.
He'd been banged up. He had been an inconsistent player. Like,
what are you going to get from Akeem Mesidor?
Right. Right. What about Justin Scott? Like, he didn't do a ton as a freshman. How will David Blay play coming over from Louisiana Tech? Like, how good is he really going to be? There's potential there, but we didn't know that they were going to be that. I'm sure Miami fans knew that they were going to be that, but of course you did. You thought they were going to be that, right? And so I think those teams have a shot. I think Indiana potentially has a shot. I would say I question Indiana's depth, but I don't think Miami had great depth this year either. And if you look at that stretch where Ruben Bain wasn't playing well because he was banged up, that happened to coincide with 2 games they lost, because they didn't have the kind of depth like that Notre Dame had in 2024. Fortunately, in the playoffs, they were mostly healthy.
Yeah.
And then they rolled. So I think you look at the teams that we broke down yesterday, I think the top 4 to 5, top 4 for sure have the potential to be there. 5, 6, and 7 maybe as well, of units that I'm capable of carrying them that way. I don't put like Clemson's D-line in there because I don't think they're that good. I think we said it yesterday, Trev, like the top 7 are all very clearly in the top 7. We had Texas Tech 7. Yep. And then there's a bit of a drop off for me between 8 and 8, 9, and 10. So, yeah. A couple things I want to respond to from Will Falk. It says highly unlikely that something like that would have survived the Romans massacring early Christians when they sacked Jerusalem. And then the second one was, plus they carbon dated the Shroud of Turin and definitively proved it was created between 1260 to 1390. Number one, I believe that this part has been actually proven that's actually not correct. I think there is legitimate science that says, no, this is actually much earlier. I don't know how much I don't care. It doesn't influence me. But the whole thing about when the Rome sacked Jerusalem in AD 70. that was over 30 years after Jesus had been crucified and, and I believe to have risen. So that means in AD 30 to 3, or around 33, if the shroud survived, it would not have been in the hands of anyone in Jerusalem, because for the most part, by AD 70, the church had been driven out of Jerusalem. Peter had been crucified. Paul had been beheaded. James, Jesus' brother, had been killed. The church would not have kept it in Jerusalem in AD 70. So that really, to me, is not a compelling thing either. I think it would have been something that would have been kept somewhere else, that in Israel most likely, or possibly in Rome. Because if you think about it, I mean, Peter was killed in Rome. Paul was killed in Rome. These are historical things that we know. So I think it would have probably moved out of that area well before AD 70. That was 3 decades after Jesus was crucified. And they certainly wouldn't have kept it like in the temple, because the Jewish leaders at the time obviously rejected Jesus and rejected Christians, so they wouldn't have kept it like there either. So I don't find that to be overly compelling, to be honest with you. But I'm just not a relics. I don't need relics to tell me that this is true or not. It just, if you found some cup from the first century, like this is the cup that Jesus drank. How do you know? Do you have his DNA? Can you test it? I don't need all that. You know what I mean? Like, it's not compelling for me. So, but yeah, I think the carbon dating thing is not correct, but I'm not trying to convince you that the Shroud of Turin is from the first century. It doesn't matter to me. And even if you could say it is definitely from the first century, it doesn't mean that it was Jesus. And also, I mean, it's people say, well, we found a grave that, we found what was it a few years ago? They found a box that had like the name of James, and then it was like had a brother named Yeshua, which is Jesus's name, is not Jesus, it was Yeshua. That was a very common name back then. So both names were very common. I mean, Jesus had 2 Jameses in his disciples and a brother named James. It was a pretty common name. So there's just a lot of things that people are trying to point to, like this proves this he does or doesn't. And I find none of them compelling. I think we have enough true historical evidence that we can all agree that Jesus lived, that he was crucified by the Romans, and that there were claims that he rose from the dead. Now, whether or not you agree that those claims are true, or you believe some of the Jewish historians or Roman historians to say the disciples stole the body or whatever, the fact is you can't deny those things. Then it comes down to you have to have a level of faith that and philosophical debate of, okay, do I believe that the resurrection happened? Nobody denies, no serious historian, even Bart Ehrman says Jesus lived and he was crucified. The debate comes from what happened after the crucifixion. And I don't think that, and early Christians were not Gnostics. That's also a lie. Gnostics didn't come along for a couple hundred years later. That's just not true. So that's the thing, is there's so much out there that people swear is true that's just not true. The Gnostic Gospels are centuries later than the Gospels that we have now. So again, there's a lot of stuff out there from both sides that I just think you're missing the plot. But some people say, like somebody just said, true early Christians were Gnostics, and he believes that. That's just like no serious historian believes that. Nobody does. But that's the problem. You have to wade through all this other mess to get there. And at the end of the day, I just don't need that stuff. It wasn't compelling to me, and it's just kind of that stuff you grab onto if you're looking for a reason to not believe what is actually there. No, Josh, it's not true. I'm sorry. That's just flat out wrong. That's not even debatable, with all due respect. So we got a question here from Tyler Evans.
Super chat for Tyler. Appreciate you, man. What's the difference between Trinidad Chambliss' eligibility getting approved and Joey Aguilar's getting denied? Because this makes no sense to me.
A judge, and their cases were ruled in different states. I mean, we've said this before, Tyler. It's you're at the mercy of what a judge and a local judge is going to state about a case that affects his in-state school.
Sure.
I mean, that's really what it boils down to. One judge ruled the kid from Alabama, the basketball player, eligible. The other one, at least for a time, they stayed it. and then somebody else said, no, you're not eligible. That's what makes this whole thing so dumb. So, I mean, yeah. I mean, the judge in the Trinidad Chambers case was getting an autograph from the kid after the thing was over. It's like,
yeah.
this is nuts.
Yeah. Not the best look. That's for sure. That is for sure.
Yep. So, yeah, let's go to this one, Trev. This will be the last one from Salty.
Is the presence of the Jasquatch on the offensive line a big enough advantage versus in his absence to win a game that the Irish might otherwise lose? I mean, look, potentially. This has been my stance for Charles Jagusah now for the last 2 seasons. If he's in the lineup, that's fantastic. But I am now to the point where I got to just see it. And I'm very much a show me person. Do I think that the offensive line could be better with Charles Jagusah on the lineup? I think so, because the sample size that I did get to see him in, the offensive line performed better. I don't think that it's a mystery that when he was in the national championship game at left tackle, pass protection against a current NFL player was better. I don't think that that's a coincidence. But with that being said, the next regular season game that we see Charles Jagusah in will be the first regular season game that we've seen Charles Jagusah in. I've seen him play in 2.5 games. In the second half, basically against Penn State, all of the national championship game, and the game against Oregon State in 2023. And they're 2-1. But they've also won a lot of other games in the regular season, big games in the regular season as well, where he wasn't in there. So could it? Potentially, but it's all speculation. Because I can't sit here and say, yeah, Notre Dame would have won 12-0 last year if Charles Jagusah was in the offensive, in the starting lineup. Potentially. But I have no concrete evidence outside of just relying on he has a very high ceiling and he's a very talented player that it could potentially. But Notre Dame didn't lose to Texas A&M in 2025 because of their offense. So unless Charles Jagusah was able to cover Mario Craver in any sort of capacity, I just don't think that would have changed the outcome of the game that much, unfortunately. So it's for me.
I do wonder if, like, Jagusah would have allowed them to run the ball better against Miami.
Sure.
That's the only game that would have mattered any different to me. The Northern Illinois game wouldn't have mattered. The Ohio State game wouldn't have mattered. He played in that game. You know what I mean? And they didn't lose to Texas A&M because of their offense. I mean, right. So the only game where I think it would have mattered to me is maybe Miami. If they could have run the ball just a little bit better against Miami, could that have mattered?
Yeah. Get some sort of offense generated in the first half of that game where you can rely on J Love. But then it's like, okay, you take out, you put in Charles Jagusah, and then you take out Gerby Lambert. Does a more experienced player, not by much, but does a more experienced player help that? Potentially. I'm with you. Definitely potential with that one. But
Yep. Then this one from Salty. What are your plans for IB tailgate for the Blue Gold game? I don't have any as of right now. So when I do, we'll try to think of something. So, yeah. That'll do it, Trev.
Well, good deal. Well, folks, that will do it for us here today on the Irish Breakdown Podcast, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. But not to worry, I believe IB Nation Sports Beat is going to go live tonight. Brian, do you know if they're going live?
Let me look real quick, Trev. I can find that out in 5 seconds. They do not have a show set yet, but that doesn't mean that they're not going live. So I can get with Vince and see. But, yeah, I think they're going tonight, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
Well, folks, it's all the more reason to have that notification bell hit and to be subscribed to this channel so you know whenever we go live. On your way out of here, be sure to hit that like button. Share this podcast with your friends and family. Anybody that you know loves Notre Dame and college football and the occasional food discussion. To join us here during the offseason.
That there's no show.
Okay. Well, sounds good. Well, then Irish Breakdown will be back with much more content on Monday. Brian will be back with you guys on Monday. I will be back on Tuesday. Got something I got to take care of on Monday. But have a fun and safe weekend, everybody.
Actually, I don't know that we're going to have a show on Monday because I forgot that you weren't going to be on the show on Monday. I have to have surgery on my mouth on Monday, so I was going to have Sean do the show with you. So we will not have a show on Monday because I will be like this and on drugs, so I will not be talking on Monday. So
welcome back to the Irish Breakdown.
Yeah, so no show on Monday. We'll be back on Tuesday.
Brian and I will be back on Tuesday. Hope surgery goes well for you, man, on Monday. Definitely. But the best way to support what we do here, you guys already know the deal. Be a premium message board subscriber at boards.irishbreakdown.com. Have a fun and safe weekend, everybody. We see you back here very soon on the Irish Breakdown Podcast.